this 2018 midterm election special, we will have in-depth coverage of national and California results as well as trends on social media.
This is a live Facebook show, so make sure to share any questions or comments below and we'll address them during the show. With that, let's just get started right now. So tonight, the country will decide its makeup of its federal and state and local governments. All 435 seats are up for grabs in the House of Representatives, while 35 seats are being decided in the Senate. 36 states will choose their next governor, and voters throughout the country will also decide on thousands of state and local positions. Though voters choosing the next president, they will determine if either the Democrats or Republicans take control of both houses of Congress.
So what is on the ballot today? House and Senate seats are just two of the decisions voters are making. They're also deciding who will be the next governor and secretary of state. Office judges and the superintendent of public instruction. There are 11 propositions and various county measures. Tonight, we'll be giving you live updates on the results of these competitive races, props, and measures as they roll in. Right now, let's go to our national correspondent, Morgan Stevens, for more on the key races we'll be watching.
That's right. There are 82 House races and 18 Senate races that are competitive, meaning that we're not really sure what's going to happen with those Republican or Democratic candidates. Let's take a look at the races to keep an eye on throughout the night. Here's a map of current House representatives of the party breakdown. So in Georgia, we have Republican Secretary of State Brian Kemp competing against Democrat Stacey Abrams. Right now, the results have Kemp at 56.2% and Abrams at 43%. If Abrams wins, she will be the first African-American governor in the United States. Now, another tight race is in Florida for a Senate seat. We have Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson squaring off against Republican Rick Scott. So far, the results have Scott at 50% and Nelson also at 50%. So this race is neck and neck. And the senator's race in Florida isn't the only hotly contested seat. Republican Ron DeSantis and Democrat Andrew Gillum are competing for governor. Right now, DeSantis is in the lead right now with 50% of the vote, and Gillum is falling just behind at 48.8%. In the race for Tennessee Senate, Republican Marsha Blackburn is battling Phil Bredesen. So far, we have Blackburn at 59% and Bredesen at 40%. And in the race for Indiana Senate, Democratic incumbent Joe Donnelly is facing Republican challenger Mike Braun. The results show we're waiting for a result. We're still on standby. Oh, here we go. We have Braun at 54% and Donnelly at 42% right now. Now, these are just a few of the races that you should keep an eye on tonight, and we'll be sure to keep you updated as these races progress and as results come in. Back to you, JP and Gabby.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Now, for a look at our home turf in California, we'll check in with our California correspondent, Albert Chin. Albert.
Thanks, JP. Today, California will be voting on 53 congressional seats. 8 of these are highly competitive. Here are California's most competitive congressional districts. In the 50th district, Republican incumbent Duncan Hunter is facing off Democrat Amar Campanajjar. Hunter is under indictment for laundering government money. This could turn the odds in favor of Campanajjar. However, the district is traditionally Republican, voting for both Hunter and Trump in 2016. We have District 25 in Ventura County. Republican incumbent Steve Knight is squaring off against Democrat Katie Hill. Hill is one of the youngest congressional districts in the country. There's an even split between Democratic and Republican voters. In 2016, this district elected Knight, but also went to Hillary Clinton. And in District 21, Republican incumbent David Vallejo faces off against TJ Tots. 72% of the district is Hispanic, a group that usually supports Democrats, but usually also has low voter turnout. This district went for Vallejo in 2016, but also for Hillary Clinton. District 10, which holds a Democrat advantage in voter registration, shows Republican incumbent Jeff Denham going against Democrat Josh Harder. Healthcare emerges as a major issue in this district, with over 40% of residents enrolled in the Medicaid program for low-income people. Finally, we have districts 39, 45, 48, and 49. These districts all encompass the Orange County area and share many similarities. While they all voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, they are also all currently represented by Republicans. Polls close in California tonight at 8. In addition to these congressional races, we have 11 propositions on the state ballot. The most contentious ones are Prop 6 and Prop 10. We'll be tracking these throughout the night.
California is going to be one everyone is going to be waiting to hear about, and since the polls close so late, it might be a while till we hear about that. But for now, we are going to toss it to one of our live reporters who is covering the California governor's race, Newsom, one of the candidates. Reporter Maddie Audley is at the Newsom watch party. Maddie?
Thanks so much, guys. I'm standing here live in downtown Los Angeles, the former home to the LA Stock Exchange, but tonight it is home to the campaign headquarters of gubernatorial candidate Gavin Newsom. Now, as you can see behind me, things are still pretty empty around here right now. That's because they're still setting up. The doors officially open to attendees around 8 o'clock tonight, and guess what? They're expecting more than 1,000 people to fill this space behind me. Now, I want to take a moment and touch on some of the major themes that Gavin Newsom has been campaigning about in the final days of this election. Specifically in education. He wants to increase funding to all areas of California educational system, specifically in those early years. He wants to expand a universal preschool program and have more affordable pre-K programs for all young students in the state. He also wants to offer 2 free years of community college to students in the state. Another thing he's been campaigning on is supporting and defending immigrant communities, specifically those sanctuary state policies. And a third thing I just want to mention is the environment. He has called global warming an existential threat to our world, and one of the ways he thinks that California can fix it is by being 100% reliant on renewable energy. And more than that, he wants to make California an exporter of our surplus energy to neighboring states. I'm going to be standing here with my colleague all night long giving you updates to come, but for now, that's all I've got. Again, reporting live from downtown, Madeline Audley. I'll send it back to you.
Thanks so much, Maddie.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, even though there's no one there, I mean, it is at 7 o'clock right now, so it's 8 p.m. So
everyone's going to be watching that. It's going to be a close call. Yeah. The 2 years of free community college tuition, I think that's a really interesting point that he's been doing. For me, that's the one that has stood out. I think that'd be really interesting if he takes that seat.
For college students and other, even other students as well.
Right.
High school students.
Right.
All of that.
Well, we will be back with Madeline later in the evening for more updates when that party gets a little more rowdy.
That's right, yeah. And so right now we're going to toss it to our Annenberg Media, Annenberg Forum right behind us, where things are getting a little crowded. People are watching the midterm elections coverage right now. So we're going to go to one of our reporters on scene right there. I apologize for that. We do not have the lobby right now, but we'll get to you guys there, definitely. I mean, definitely look behind us right now. I mean, it's getting pretty packed. I know it's only 7 o'clock, but yeah.
Hundreds of people are out there right now. CNN and MSNBC Live is what's playing out there.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching all the results as they roll in live right here.
Yeah, especially even though the West Coast hasn't gotten them yet, we're getting a lot of East Coast coverage and the results from there as well. So now we do actually have our reporters out there in the field. Right behind us is Cecil Hannibal and Roy Pankey live on the floor.
Called into ClearCom?
Is lobby going to...
We're reporting live in Wallace Annenberg Hall, where faculty and students have packed the room watching the results of the midterm elections pour in on the giant TV in the lobby. Yes, the energy here is contagious. There's free food, some pizza. You know I love pizza. Oh, I do too. There have been a few panels that have already happened tonight. There's several more as the rest of the results continue to pour in. Everybody here is really excited. The energy is really high.
Yes.
What were you saying earlier about what you think the crowd reaction has been to the results so far?
So it seems every time a Democrat wins their district, the crowd goes crazy. Now, we don't know if that's going to continue all night, but we'll be here to give you guys more updates.
And they will as well until all the election results come in at about 10 p.m. We'll take it back to you guys in the studio.
I need to know what they're talking. Thank you so much, Roy and Cecil. We'll come back to you later. Hopefully they'll get to talk to some students out there, see how they feel about everything coming in. And we'll get a little more about a vibe of where USC students stand on all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it, speaking of USC students, getting out to vote, it's so important, I guess, for, college students to get out and vote. We had a student coalition here at USC called Vote SC. They were working with, different student organizations, a lot of the, Unruh Political Institute as well.
Right.
As well as a lot of these other coalitions just trying to bring in a lot of the student vote out.
Yeah, I know they had on National Voter Registration Day, they had a big event out near Tommy Trojan. They were giving out free In-N-Out. I think it was Power 106, the radio station came, just really trying to get people riled up, not just to register to vote, but to get excited about it, And people are wearing their stickers today. It's a thing that people are celebrating this right that we have as American citizens, so it's really exciting to see.
Yeah. And as I said before, even though the president isn't at stake, the midterm elections are as important.
Right.
As well.
Right. I think this is one of the biggest midterm elections where we've seen turnout, where we've seen spending in many years. So because midterm elections are known to, have less turnout, less people paying attention than obviously a presidential election, but this one has been definitely a notable one.
Yeah, and I guess 2 years prior, Annenberg Media was here to cover the 2016 election. Definitely a different vibe of what we see, or maybe a little similar vibe right here.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah.
But definitely when it's the president election, that's where a lot of people have their interest and attention.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's also been a lot of people who've been saying they're first-time voters.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting for them, being a part of all of this craziness that's going on. And one of our reporters did a little piece on that.
That's right, yeah.
I'm ready to make my voice heard.
I guess when I turned 18, that was definitely one of the first things that I thought about.
Two students from different backgrounds, both in their first year at USC, and they're both about to cast their ballot for the first time.
I think it's exciting. Part of me is disappointed I didn't get to vote in the presidential election, but I think this election is one of the most important midterm elections.
Aydin Yalnız is a California native with a Jewish mother and a Muslim father from Turkey.
Seeing all of the hate that's going on in this country, both for the Jewish community and the Muslim community, all the time, sometimes I feel like public enemy number one.
He says with the rise of white supremacy, his vote matters now more than ever. Alexis Turner is half Mexican and African American. Her vote is for her family.
Get invested in what's going on right now because you should care what's happening because it affects you, it affects the people who come after you, your family.
And that they can play a really key role. Pundits are really saying that it's young people and women who are going to really decide this election through their turnouts.
I think it's important for my peers at USC to vote because, like I said, a huge principle in a democracy is making your voice heard and voting.
I now have an opportunity, as well as all of my peers, have the opportunity to hopefully make a lasting change in something that we want or strongly believe in.
For Annenberg Media, I'm Cecil Hannibal.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Cecil Hannibal, for that great package of first-time voters. So now, since we did go to the Gavin Newsom party in downtown LA, we're going to go to the John Cox watch party in San Diego.
He's the Republican governor candidate. We have our reporters Angel Vizcarra and Keith DeMolder there now. What can you tell us, guys?
Thanks, guys. Angel Vizcarra, joined by Keith DeMolder. We're here at the U.S. Grand Hotel in downtown San Diego for the Republican watch party tonight for governor candidate of California, John Cox. And Keith, really quickly, some big happenings down in the lobby of this hotel a few minutes ago. What did you see when John Cox walked in? And I heard he was making some pretty solid statements coming on in.
He definitely was. He came out, he spoke to reporters and just told everybody, number one, to get out to the polls. It's still, an hour away.
Yeah.
8 o'clock is the final time you can vote here in California. But he said in 1 hour, real change is going to come in California. So this Republican Party, especially John Cox, they are in it to win it. A lot of Yes on 6 supporters here tonight at the hotel. So right now, John Cox, he is going about it as if he's going to be the next governor.
Fantastic. And right now we're here at the watch party where things are slowly starting to pick up. A few minutes ago, things were a little more dead. A lot of media here nationally here for tonight to see what happens in the California governor race. But we'll be having more updates for you all. We'll be chatting, getting some one-on-one interviews with some of those folks from Pop 6. Definitely some supporters of John Cox we'll be chatting with tonight. So a lot of things going on down here at San Diego currently, but Republicans very excited for tonight. And Keith, what's the atmosphere you're getting so far from the folks you chatted with tonight?
Well, it seems like, as I mentioned, they're in it to win it, and there's a lot of excitement. People think that this is a blue state through and through, but in fact, they're saying no. They're saying there's going to be a Republican resurgence here in this election, and just like we saw 2 years ago with Donald Trump, you can never count anybody out, especially John Cox, who has that businessman, atmosphere of him. So I think that people here, they're excited. Obviously, it's a big day, a lot of propositions, and they're saying even if we don't win the governor's seat, there's still these propositions that can enact real change in California.
All right, Keith, thank you very much. A lot of excitement on the red side of things currently here from San Diego. But for now, we'll toss it back to you folks, and we'll have more in a bit from the John Cox Watch Party.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Angel and Keith. A local shelter is doing its part to make sure all residents have a chance to take part in today's midterm elections. Angel Viscara spoke to voters on Skid Row about exercising their right to vote.
Voters across Los Angeles are heading to the polls today. There are polling stations at universities, parks, and even some places you might not expect, like Skid Row.
They're people too, and their vote matters. So giving people the ability to have that option is definitely very important.
The Midnight Mission runs a polling station in the heart of a homeless community in downtown Los Angeles.
Just because they're out here on the street and marginalized and may feel lost and forgotten, we want to remind them and everybody else that that's not the case, that they are people too, then their vote matters, their vote counts.
Timothy McEnroe is homeless, but he says he never misses the opportunity to vote.
I wanted to vote, and I found the ballots. I asked questions, where do I vote at? And they said, go in here. It's the United States of America, and that's how we get our candidates elected.
Now, in order to be a voter in this year's midterm elections, there's a short list of requirements. First, you need to be a U.S. citizen. Second, you need to be a resident of the state of California. Third, you cannot have any current felonies or charges against you. And fourth, the state of California cannot have declared you mentally unstable. And one thing that you don't need to vote is a permanent address. So even for folks here in Skid Row, voting is fair game. The Midnight Mission also helps register voters. People without a home can use the address of a shelter.
And the community gives their part, even under their circumstances. Everyone here deserves the right to be able to vote for that.
Have to vote provisionally.
This morning, dozens showed up at the mission to exercise that right. Many submitted a provisional ballot. Those ballots are evaluated by officials before being counted. For Annenberg Media, I'm Angel Viscara.
So we have a guest right now. She is the Annenberg Media Center director here at USC. And it's Christina Bellantoni here
Okay.
in Studio A right now. So, and we'll be talking shortly about the race in Texas, not the Senate race. Oh yes, the Senate race with Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, and what's happening really shortly right now. So yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, I'm in the USC Annenberg Media Center lobby right now, and this with a student panel. We have students from USC joining us to give a little commentary on everything that's happening tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. First question, so a lot of people have been looking toward polls to see, which way things are going to lean, but some people have said they've been misleading. We know in the 2016 elections, polls were predicting something, then a totally different outcome. So what are you expecting tonight? How have things shifted from what we were looking at earlier this weekend and earlier today?
I would say it looks very similar to the polls, what we expected. A lot of people were saying the Democrats were going to take the House, and while it's not sure yet, it's 95% last I looked. So think that was pretty accurate. It was always expected that Democrats would lose a few seats. Beto O'Rourke, it seems like, is not going to win Texas, which was also to be expected. So I'd say for this election, polls were really kind of spot on.
And what was your name? Can you just say your name?
I'm Ellie from Vote SC.
Great. And you can introduce yourself when
All
you.
right, I'm Elliot, and I'm from Young Americans for Freedom. I'd just like to add to that. I think they look way more solid this year. The two states that I've been looking at is Indiana and Florida, where they're predicted to go blue, but it looks like they're turning red. Other than that, it's been way better than 2016. So.
Alec from Trojan Advocates for Political Progress. One of my friends said it best when he said polls aren't wrong, they're just inaccurate. So I think sometimes we put a little bit too much faith in them, and we don't always account for factors like, for example, today there were like snowstorms and thunderstorms all across middle America and the East Coast, and that typically leads to lower Democratic turnout. So there's some institutional factors that we can't always account for, and just enthusiasm in general.
So you mentioned things that your friends were saying. What else have your friends been talking about in the last couple of weeks leading up to this election? Have you seen more passion in them, more people voting? What has been some of those conversations you've been having with your friends here at USC and beyond?
Hi, my name is Rebecca from YDSA. I think we can probably all agree that there's definitely a lot more energy among young people, a lot more just even advertisement of like voting and just seeing that transparency and visibility. And for me, I really believe that's really hopeful in actually including people who haven't voted in the past. And I think speaking on about polls, I think that's a great like explanation of why we should believe that polls are I love that fact, the saying of polls are inaccurate and we shouldn't put too much on the numbers because we usually don't account for these people who don't usually show up to those polls, right? The most marginalized communities who don't feel included in these conversations. And I see a lot more of that outreach of like talking to those community members, of people in those communities, and those people getting excited to go out to the polls.
And to just kind of add on to that, I think there's a lot more excitement about voting. There's a lot more openness about talking about voting. I think in 2016, you didn't really talk about voting with your friends, and now it's everywhere. It's at conversations over dinner. It's on Instagram. So it's really an incredible improvement of how about we talk about voting.
Yeah, sorry. I just think that the 2016 election was kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people, especially young people, when we thought that it was going to be Hillary who was going to win. So I think a lot of people, especially young people, are more motivated to go voting this year. And I think we see that on both sides of the aisle, that people are fired up about this election, which is good because we want a higher turnout no matter what you're voting for.
I think there's an increase in sort of defeating the stigma that your vote doesn't matter, especially when, you know, all of us are in college and we might be voting in different states than our home states, or we might be voting back home, and that really can, you know, motivate people to make a change outside of, for example, California, where maybe if you think the state is going to go blue and you don't feel that you have that much power. I had a friend call me today while she was in line in Missouri to vote for Claire McCaskill, for example, and she lives in the Bay Area, but she's voting in Missouri, which I think is really cool to see, you know, our generation grow up and not only be able to vote, but be able to kind of, wherever we live or wherever we go to college, affect change and actually have a vote that matters.
Right, because college students a lot of the time will move, you know, across the country or far away, and it makes voting a little bit more difficult. But if you have that passion for it, like we've been seeing more this year, you're going to take those extra steps or those extra measures to make sure your vote gets counted. Also, how have you seen social media play a role in all of this year? So you say people are getting fired up, you know, they're posting at my I voted stickers. Is that the main outlet for, you know, the millennials, the people our age, to sort of show their excitement about all of this?
I can take it. I think there's a lot of ways that social media can let you participate in a way that's easier maybe than, like, you know, going out and canvassing or knocking on a door, especially if you're not from the area that you're currently living in, or you're in an area that, you know, it doesn't have a competitive race. But I think social media really has a power to reach our generation, and you saw it with, like, Taylor Swift, who registered 60,000 votes with an Instagram post. So really, I think it's a really good tool to kind of use in strategies to get out the vote and voter registration.
Yeah, and I think that the parties are trying to understand this, and I see a lot of promotion, at least for me, and like Instagram and Twitter, from like counties and states that I haven't even been to, and they're promoting their candidates that I'm not going to vote for. But it's definitely a lot more widespread, and people are trying to get young voters to come out. So.
Okay, right before we finish, I want each of you to just say a little bit about the organization you're a part of, what sort of things you've been doing differently this year or that we can be looking forward to after these elections and for the next ones coming up in 2 years.
Again, I'm Rebecca from YDSA. So I think a good ending note is our organization is a really strong believer of mass mobilization and like youth and power and that kind of the movements we've been able to see that have been achieved through social media. So our organization is really focusing on building those community like relationships, because if the personal is political, it starts at the interpersonal, right? It starts at the very interactions of building community, getting to know each other, and just what community organizing is really getting together and see what shared kind of interests that we have. And for us, it's like bringing together communities of color and the most marginalized communities that usually are very disenfranchised and aren't talking to one another, and see how kind of us gathering in that mass action, how we can demand more. And I think in regards to the election, that's what a lot of people on the left do believe is, I believe the fight is not over. We can get whoever we want in power, in political power, but it doesn't matter as long as if we don't put pressure on them to actually follow through on their promises. And that's what I'm hoping for with YDSA.
Awesome, thanks.
So I'm Alec from the Trojan Advocates for Political Progress. We are very involved with Get Out the Vote for a lot of candidates, anywhere from Katie Hill to Jackie Rosa in Nevada. And I think now as we kind of focus on 2020, I think there's 2 years now of really great work for advocacy, like Rebecca said, pushing our legislators to actually pursue progressive policies, really making sure that people are engaged not only during election years, but civic engagement is year-wide, every single month, every single year. So meeting with our legislators, calling Congress, getting people organized around ideas and ballot measures.
Yeah, and I'm Elliot Dennison from the Young Americans for Freedom. I think what our organization does for USC is that we provide a light or an insight for conservative voices to be heard on campus. We just hosted the Ben Shapiro event where a lot of people from USC came out who you didn't think were conservatives, but who actually were able to go to the event and had their voices heard. And speaking of marginalized groups, I think conservatives, being in a liberal campus in California, it's important for us to kind of show that conservatives are also present on campus so that everyone gets a voice.
My name is Lee Fisher. I'm with College Democrats here at USC, and I think our organization is a really great way to incorporate good conversation, activism, engagement, and leadership under the umbrella of the Democratic Party. And we've been really trying to, engage our membership in meaningful activism this semester, and we're going to continue to do so. As Alex said, whether it's an election year or not, the good work is still there to be done. And so we're really trying to focus on making our organization a community and motivating everyone in that community to do the best they can for the Democratic Party and for people of every political persuasion here at USC, and to really affect change in the years to come.
My name's Ellie Vioto from Vote SC and the Honor Associates on campus, and I think this election is just a jumping off point on continuing the work, like both Alec and Lee said, to keep registering people to vote, keep reminding people our age how important it is to actually then use their voices and go out and vote, especially because it is something that is not just an election year. It's every year, and just really sponsoring civil dialogues on this campus and continuing conversations between different political perspectives.
Right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I know it's exciting for everyone politically involved on campus. It was great to hear your perspectives on what you guys are doing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is their live Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so much, Gabby. Here in Studio A with me is Annenberg Media Center Director Christina Bellantoni. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, as we see, as the night's going on, a lot of excitement, a lot of claps and cheers for candidates as well. So we just got word that a lot of the networks right now are seeing that Cruz might be the winner of the race for the Senate, his incumbent seat. So I guess talk about that overall landscape of this race in Texas right now.
Sure. Well, why don't we start with Texas, and then we can talk about the big picture.
Sure, yeah.
So Texas is a really interesting example because in general, incumbents are reelected. In general, Texas is a Republican state. A Republican incumbent should be elected. Beto O'Rourke, who sort of came out of nowhere, started generating a lot of attention, getting progressive energy, a lot of national attention, a lot of national money, and really campaigning all across the state, has kept this race far more competitive than anyone would have predicted a long time ago. So we've seen everybody except the AP call this race for Cruz to be reelected. What's interesting about this is that so many people turned out for Beto O'Rourke that he kept it competitive enough that it looks like he's actually helping Democrats in other races in Texas. So the race for Pete Sessions, a very strong Republican, looks like he's about to lose and not be reelected because Beto O'Rourke brought so much turnout out. So there's really what we call a down ballot effect in many cases. The overall landscape is actually a little interesting because where we are at this point in the night, it's 7:30, and you have a number of the East Coast states their polls have closed. They're counting the votes. California polls close in about half an hour. And so what we know is that a lot of the suburban Republican districts have flipped over to Democrats. You haven't seen any House Democrats lose their seats to Republicans as of now. So most of the networks are projecting this is going to be a Democratic takeover of the House, which is really interesting when you think that there's so many races that we haven't seen, and it doesn't actually feel like there have been that much movement. And then on the other side, you've seen the Senate. Democrats have lost at least 2 seats, which means that Republicans are going to retain control of the Senate. So no matter what, you're likely to have divided government, which has a lot of far-reaching consequences. So all of this is kind of what you have to interpret as you're looking at the results this early on. We're going to have a much clearer picture of what's happening, at 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight.
And looking at Beto O'Rourke's race, how do we see I guess a more progressive, ideas coming into campaigns and all that throughout the nation?
Yeah, his model is really interesting, and particularly I've been watching the Florida governor's race a lot. Right now Andrew Gillum is neck and neck with Congressman Ron DeSantis, the Republican there, and he's another candidate who ran on really strong liberal ideas, progressive ideas. And so what that signals is that can attract younger voters, it can attract minority voters, and that can be a coalition that can win for you, or at least get you very, very close to winning. And in states that are such high populations like Florida and Texas, that's what you really need, somebody that has the energy. You've heard comparisons to Barack Obama and what he was able to captivate at the national level, because these are candidates who are going to many places all across the state. They're not just appealing to the big urban centers, and they're really trying to get out the vote. But there's also there's like a little charisma or something that sort of captivates people. And particularly in Florida, Florida is a state that always has elections, and we're seeing the Senate races neck and neck, whether Bill Nelson is reelected, the Democrat there, governor's race, and we've seen several House races already flip. So again, even if Andrew Gillum ends up losing that governor's race, he has actually helped Democrats running in some of the other districts in the state.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that insight, Christina.
Sure.
Well, thank you. I know we're going to have a lot more guests like Christina, more student guests, more political experts here at USC. So if you have any questions, we are on Facebook Live, so put your questions and comments below anywhere so we can get those right to you. And so right now, we are going back to our Newsom Watch Party live reporters in downtown LA. We have Trevor Sahaki there right now. Tell us a little bit what's going on there, Trevor.
That's right, guys. I'm live here in downtown LA at the Gavin Newsom Watch Party. Now, we are in the former LA Stock Exchange, and this building is huge. They say it can fit up to 1,000 people, and they expect as many tonight. I'll tell you, right now, people are just starting to file in. The building really isn't even half full, and I can barely hear myself talk right now. But more on the campaign. Now, people have been saying that these midterms are more a referendum on Trump, and this race, this California governor's race, is no different, except it's not a Republican, John Cox, versus a Democrat, Gavin Newsom. It's California versus Trump himself. The state of California has opposed Trump at nearly every turn, whether it be environment, immigration. They filed lawsuits against him, and this election right here is their way of saying we don't like you being in office. Now, the polls have shown it too. in the first polls that have come out, Newsom has been ahead and he's stayed ahead. And he knows that as well. He hasn't been overconfident on the campaign trail, but if you look at his actions, he's gone down to Orange County to help out Katie Porter, Gil Cisneros, those people in counties that are traditionally red to try and really bring out the vote there. Now, he knows that he's ahead. He was up in San Francisco last night with Kamala Harris, with Jerry Brown, stumping everywhere around California. Former time as lieutenant governor, as mayor of San Francisco, he's comfortable with the people of California. They're comfortable with him. And again, if the polls show it, he's going to have a win tonight. Like I said before, this is a referendum on Trump, and Gavin Newsom has opposed Trump. If you look at some of his positions that he's taken, again, immigration, environment, he has opposed Trump, and this night, and for the rest of his possible tenure, will be no different. But we'll have more reports live for you coming up in the future hours. For now, I'm Trevor Zahaki reporting live for NW Media from downtown LA. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Now we're going to talk to one of our other live reporters who is at a UCLA watch party, similar to the one going on behind us right now, but over at our rival school, UCLA. So we have Sam Scalbania over there at the watch party. Sam,
are we about to go?
What's up?
All right, we're about to go. All right, I'm here at Bruin Plaza on UCLA campus in Westwood, California, where the voting mood is hype right now. We got loud music, we got a bouncy house, we even have sumo wrestling, all in the name of voting. And this event is all put on by Bruins Vote, where students will come and they could vote in Ackerman Union Hall here, and afterwards they can get themselves a sticker or a wristband in honor of their vote being submitted. Now we have the president of Bruins Vote, Selena Avalos, with us here today. Selena, thanks for being with us. So Selena, can you tell us a little bit about Bruins Vote?
Yeah, so Bruins Vote is a nonpartisan organization here on campus aiming to increase civic and voter engagement here on campus.
Perfect. And what's the voter turnout been like today?
It's honestly been really amazing. We've been out here since 9 a.m. with our Bruins Vote t-shirts, telling people where to vote in Ackerman Union. A lot of them are also turning in their vote by mail ballots. And even till right now, it's like 7:40 and people are still turning in their vote by mail ballots. The line in Ackerman Union is extremely long. We've been providing food over there in Ackerman Union and also here, through all of the activities that we've been having. So I think it's pretty great.
And what drives you to put on an event like this?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't able to vote until my dad became a naturalized citizen. And I didn't even know that I wasn't able to vote until my dad said, oh, congrats, you're a citizen, because I turned 18 years old. Before I turned 18 years old, 3 months before my dad became a U.S. citizen, and then I became a U.S. citizen. So knowing that I have the privilege to vote, I want to make sure that other students also vote. But in order to do that, I want to make sure that students engage in the voting process. And we did that by creating this event where people can just come and have fun, enjoy the party, and make sure that everyone votes.
All right, thank you so much, Selena. I appreciate it. All right, that's all we have from UCLA right now. I'm Sam Scalbania. We'll have more updates coming throughout the night. Back to you guys at the studio.
Thank you, Sam. Well, social media is taking to this election. It is a hot topic tonight. You can see on here for the 2018 election, for Twitter, we are having upward of 1 million conversations. Now, in comparison to 2014, the last time we had our midterm elections, this was far lower, almost about 4 times less. Here you'll see that emotion is also far less far greater this election than in 2014. In 2014, we had about 65% of tweets that did not contain emotion, and of the 35% that did, about 71% were positive, and 28% were negative. Now, when we look back at 2018's midterm election right now, that same emotion is about fairly relevant to the same. However, the difference here is that only 59% of these conversations do not contain emotion. So we're seeing a far greater percentage of emotion this year. And what this emotion kind of means is not necessarily particularly pertaining to candidates, but it is more toward the general voting process. So that negative process is more the long lines that voters are having to wait in, and the positive is more the go out and vote attitude. So we'll get more on this motion that comes with voting. Later we'll have Professor Matthew Levesque with us, but for now, back to you guys. This election season, politicians across the country have turned to texting potential voters. Still on that wave of social media, Annenberg Media's Taylor Elliott spoke to students about some of the messages they have received.
Have you been getting random text messages from politicians? Well, you're not alone. Political campaigns send messages to voters to promote events, share information, and most importantly, encourage them to vote.
Well, I think obviously texting and emailing is the best way to get to young voters, and because there's this new wave of all of these young people voting early and for the midterm elections. So I think it could help in that. It's like that daily reminder, hey, get your absentee ballot, especially for college voters, or hey, tell your friends.
You may be wondering how all these campaigns even got your phone number. Thank voter registration. The phone number you gave when you filled that out is what campaigns use to send you all those texts reminding you to get out and vote tomorrow.
Well, I mean, I was already registered. I re-registered. I don't think it was necessary for me to do that, but I did. And once I did that, it was immediately I started getting texts.
Voters can unsubscribe if they would like. One expert believes that as long as young people stay glued to their phones, politicians will keep sending out those texts.
Younger voters apparently are coming out in far more significant numbers, and that's the key. And as long as that's the key, you will see candidates continue to text and text and text.
Whether you got one of those text messages or not, make sure to cast your ballot in today's election. For Annenberg Media, I'm Taylor Elliott.
That's great. And I guess going back into, we have again a full house here at Annenberg in the lobby. And again, we wanted to report from AP News that Republican Senator Ted Cruz has won re-election for the Senate in Texas. And as we come into 7:40, it's less than 20 minutes till the polls close in California.
Right, just a few more minutes to get those votes in if you haven't, and then we're going to be glued to those results as we find out California rolling in.
That's right. When California rolls in with the results, please tell us your thoughts and your questions. Again, we're on Facebook Live at USC Annenberg Media, so we'll want to answer those questions or comments that you have right now. And so right now we have our own live reporter at the lobby. Cecil Hannibal has more with student reaction and what's happening right behind us.
Cecil, what does it look like out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, 90 seconds takes forever, huh?
It does. I'm here with Alex Oliver. He is the treasurer of Young Americans for Liberty. Now, Alex, tell me about your organization.
We are the premier liberty organization across America. We're trying to spread the message that liberty is generally good, that capitalism is generally better than socialism, but that we also don't want to spend our money to bomb people in the Middle East, and we want people to be free to live the lives that they want.
And so what was interesting is I met you because you handed me a constitution. Why are you passing these out today?
I think it's very important that everybody knows the rights that given to them by the Constitution, and I think that it's important that everybody read it at least once. It's part of being an American. And so we were passing them out in order to educate the general public.
So what are you hoping, how are you hoping the elections go tonight?
Ultimately, I don't think President Trump is a great friend of liberty. He's done a number of things that are authoritarian. Even among the question of free markets, he's done a bunch of tariffs, which haven't been very good. So I think that we want that the Democrats to win in the House, but not so much that it dramatically shifts the future of America.
So I almost forgot. Tell me about your book right here, and hold it up for everybody. Hold it up. What is this book right here?
We had Tom Palmer, Cato Institute fellow, come to us last week, and he spoke to us about free trade. And this is a collection of essays by him on how we can make America a little bit freer, a little bit more prosperous, and a little bit more peaceful. It's a collection of essays from libertarian authors from across time.
Wow. So this isn't the only student organization on campus. There's several others, and we might talk to some later. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Cecil. Great to see all the things that are happening right out behind us.
That's
and
right.
Listen and hear from some students. We're going to check in with our live reporter out at the Norwalk Registrar's office and see what's happening there. Taylor Elliott, what's the vibe like tonight?
Thank you, guys. I'm Taylor Elliott, and we are out here right outside the county clerk and registrar's office in Norwalk. Just to give you a little bit of background, this is where all the votes from across the county are brought, they're checked in, they're inspected, and then they are counted. Now, not only are the votes counted here, but you can also line up and vote here in person. And they split up the line today to make things a little easier. We have the registered voters as well as the unregistered voters. Now, people have been here for hours, and I got a chance to talk to a few people saying that they were here for at least 3 hours. Now, right now, I'd like to talk to Faith, who is a voter that I met in line. Faith, first, let's start out with this, is what brought you to Norwalk to vote today?
Well, my sister works at this building, so she told me to come vote at this place, and especially I wasn't registered, so I wanted to find a place to vote, so that's why I came to this building.
Okay, and so what was the process like since you were unregistered as of today?
Well, I looked up online to see where I can vote, and then I realized you have to go to a county building to go vote in person today, especially today since the deadline passed to register. So I came to this building, and so far it's been easy. I've just been waiting in line and waiting to go inside the building.
How long has your wait been?
To me, I'm not really that impatient with waiting in line, so it hasn't really been that crazy for me. I'm not going crazy right now. I feel like the lines at Disneyland are longer, so I'm in line here, so it's not really that big of a wait for me.
And last question for you is what makes the wait worth it?
My vote counts. That's what makes it worth it. I can only do this twice or 2 times or once every year, I'm guessing. Yeah, so I think it's really important to go out and vote.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Faith. I'll let you get back in line so you don't lose your spot. But yeah, that's what we have for you right now. We're going to be talking to some more voters and also keeping you updated with what's going on. But for now, back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Taylor. We'll be back in with her later tonight in the show. So we're just getting word now that Democrats have taken 2 seats in the House that are previously Republican. That is in Illinois and Michigan.
That's right, yeah. And I guess looking into that, I guess that is good news for the Democrats.
Right.
Looking at the representative seats as well. But also, we just got word that Republicans have retained the Senate. So Republicans are now still the majority.
Right.
And will get Trump's agenda going forward in the next 2 years. Yeah.
That was expected in the days up and coming until today, but it's definitely a big deal because Democrats were obviously hoping to get at least one of those houses. So now it's up to the seats that they may be able to get in the House of Representatives in order to stay in that race of having some control over in the White House.
That's right.
In D.C., yes.
Yeah. And now, next up, we have our own Keith DeMolder, who will be who is live at the San Diego John Cox watch party right now. Keith, what do we have going in San Diego right now?
Thanks so much, JP and Gabby. We're here from the John Cox watch party. People starting to fill up here, but still 8 o'clock. That's the time when everybody's going to come in. I actually have a special guest with me. Is Autumn Stoff. Autumn has been a state delegate. She's been a presidential delegate for Donald Trump. Firstly, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here.
So you were a presidential delegate for Donald Trump. Can you explain? Yeah, can you explain that experience for us?
Yeah, it's a very exciting experience, especially for someone who's already been a county delegate multiple times, and I've been a state delegate for a long time. So it was it was like on my bucket list to actually be to become a delegate for the presidential race. It was exciting.
So obviously 2 years ago, that was a very exciting election process. 2 years later, what can you say about this election here in 2018?
Well, it's pretty exciting. It's more so than most midterm races are. We have a lot more people that seem a lot more interest and stories. It just seems to be a lot more interest and a lot more, the races are closer, it seems like, especially for the midterms. It's not quite where we were 2 years ago. There was a lot of excitement in that race, but there's quite a bit this time around too.
Obviously, a lot of excitement tonight here as well. John Cox running for Republican candidate for governor. Can you explain just why you're here tonight and why do you like John Cox so much?
Well, John is a hometown boy. He lives here in San Diego, and we know him, and we think the world of him because he's got a business background, and we feel like he really could help fix some things in California that are broken, that we need. So we like his views. I support his views. on all kinds of things, our roads and just almost most issues. I feel like I'm in agreement with him on.
So obviously California is a blue state, a lot of Democratic people here, but there's also a big Republican bloc. Can you just talk about some of these Republican voters, where they are in California, and is this state truly a blue state, or is there also Republican voters?
Well, I think there's a lot more Republicans than anybody wants you to believe. And I think we're all throughout the state. And there's a lot of independents, I believe, in the state of California who vote in a more conservative manner. And John Cox is for everybody. He's not just for Republicans. He's just a working man that moved his way up, that has business experience, I think that could really help us coming out of where we've been the last 8 years in the state of California.
Absolutely. And so tonight, obviously Gavin Newsom coming in, people are expecting him to win. Do you think that John Cox has a fighting chance tonight, and if so, why?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Just because I've seen the response that he's gotten out there when he's out campaigning and how many different types of people are supporting him. He's got people from all walks of life that support his candidacy. So that's why I think he actually has a fighting chance. And he's a good candidate. And he's been everywhere. So that's what gives me hope.
If he does win, what are your guys' plans for tonight? Are you going to any parties? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, I think we'll do some celebrating. Definitely. There's a lot of events going on, especially in the downtown area tonight.
Well, Autumn, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So that was Autumn, guys. We're here at the John Cox Watch Party. We'll be here all night, so make sure to keep it right here on Annenberg TV News. I'm Keith Muller. We'll send it back to the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Keith. He's in San Diego right now, getting a lot of coverage from the John Cox Party right now. It is 7:50, so that is 9 or 10 minutes until the polls close in California. That's right. So before we have another thing happening in studio right now, we're going to toss it to one of our live reporters, Charlotte and Colin. They are at the Orange County polling place right now near Irvine, California. Colin and Charlotte, what's looking over there?
Well, JP and Gabby, we're out here in a polling place in Irvine, California, and well, it's not nearly as popping as Annenberg, but it's surprising. Let me tell you, it's about to close down about roughly 15 minutes, and there's still people coming in one by one. There's probably people still at the ballots right now, filling them out, making sure their voice is heard. Charlotte, what have we seen tonight?
Well, I think the most surprising thing we've seen tonight is there's still preliminary registration, which means that you can still register today and you can put in your vote today. It might not be counted, but people are coming in and registering to vote with 10 minutes left with voting, with time left to vote. So I think that that's really interesting that you can still register and vote today, even though it might not be counted. So
They're just I'm surprised the last second, but it's blowing me away. Americans across Irvine are just making sure they get their voices heard with only really 10 minutes to spare. Well, anyway, you catch us later over at the Katie Porter Watch Party. But back to the studio. My name is Colin Taylor.
And I'm Charlotte Scott.
Back to you guys at the studio.
Thanks so much, Charlotte and Colin. We'll be back to you guys later tonight to find out more things going on in OC. For now, we have a guest, Mark
Ambinder.
Mark Ambinder, our guest today. So we just found out that the GOP has the Senate for another 2 years. What is this going to mean for those 2 years and then for the 2020 elections?
Look, I've 2020. I've been covering elections now since 2000, and I remember that election night when everyone was up because the presidential race was deadlocked and there's a recount in Florida for 26 days. So as crazy as politics is now, and it's pretty crazy, it was also crazy back then. So we have a divided Congress. You have Democrats now regaining control of the House and Republicans keeping control of the Senate. So what does the House do that the Senate doesn't do? Well, the House, you start all budgets in the House. What that means is Democrats get to write the budgets. But that also means that Donald Trump now has Democrats to blame if he doesn't like budgets. So he can shut down the government and maybe try to blame Democrats. So you might have just 2 years of budget brinksmanship. But the most important thing that happens is that Democrats are now the chairs of all the important committees and probably are going to get at least one extra seat more than they would have gotten even if they had won just a couple of more seats than Republicans did. What that means is they get subpoena power, which means oversight, significant oversight for the Trump administration in all of its forms. And it means essentially that the Trump administration's efforts towards regulatory deregulation, anything it wants to do on taxes, a lot of that is, essentially is essentially stymied, and Democrats are going to spend a lot of time trying to reveal or peel back the layers. And then the question of impeachment comes up, because a lot of Democrats are going to be angering and hankering for impeachment of President Trump. And impeachment starts in the House. And if there's a majority in the House can vote to impeach the president, it would go to the Senate, where 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote to convict. And that's not going to happen unless Donald Trump suddenly becomes very unpopular in the Senate. But I don't think that's going to happen for two reasons. One is his intervention probably saved the Senate for Republicans tonight. And the Senate is going to get to do stuff over the next couple of years. They're going to have accomplishments because they confirm judges and appointments. So they're going to be saying, well, the next couple of years, send us all the conservative judges you want, and we'll confirm them very quickly. So I think you're going to see that dynamic play out over a lot of investigations and gridlock in the House, revelatory stuff about the Trump administration that's not flattering to Trump, but a lot of judges confirmed, conservative judges confirmed by an even more conservative Senate.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I guess going into the 2020 election,
yeah,
and Trump now has the Senate, and he has wants to push his agenda even further. How does that look for?
Well, the question becomes what type of election he wants to run in 2020. Although maybe it isn't such of a question. Maybe we know exactly the type of election he wants to run in 2020, the same type of election he ran in 2016 or 2018. Does he actually, if he wanted to, he could reach out and, remember you kept hearing about Infrastructure Week all this time and it would get upended by some scandal. Well, a majority that now exists in the House to pass a big infrastructure bill. But Donald Trump is probably not going to go for that route. His route is probably going to be, you know what, I'm going to inflame and keep my base as angry as possible for 2020 re-election. And that means that Democrats running against him are going to probably adopt that model. He's still going to be the center of everyone's universe. So Democrats that are able to make a really strong case against Trump are going to be the ones who are suddenly vaulted to the top of the 2020 sphere. That might include even one who lost tonight, Beto O'Rourke, but then it might include a Democrat like Sherrod Brown, a senator who won re-election in a tough state like Ohio, who has a very strong economic case to make against Trump. Is a former labor guy. He's like a big, gravelly voice. I mean, if you think about archetypes, it's going to be interesting to see what type of candidate, or Elizabeth Warren, who has been uncompromising and has tried to take off of the table Trump's attempts to demean her and her identity. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the 2020 candidates evolve based on this sort of divided government, and the way in particular that Trump did his best to keep control of the Senate, and probably again helped keep control of the Senate for Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Mark Ambidger.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to be tossing it back to Morgan Stevens in the studio with a national update.
Hi. So what we want to look at nationally right now is we have 80 races that are highly competitive, and where we're at kind of distinguishes where we're going forward. Okay, so if you take a look, we have Colorado 6, Florida 27, Illinois 6, Kansas 3, Minnesota 3, New Jersey 11, Pennsylvania 6, Pennsylvania 7, Pennsylvania 17, and Virginia 10. Those have all flipped Democratic. So all those seats, they were democratically favored in the polls, but those races have been called and they have flipped toward a Democratic representative. Now, this is what's interesting, is if you look in your toss-up margin, we have Florida 26 and we have Virginia 2. No, those were toss-up races, so we didn't know if those were going to go Republican or Democrat. So those seats have actually flipped Democrat. Now, if you scroll down, you'll also see that Florida 15, Kansas 6, North Carolina 13, and Ohio 12, those were also toss-up districts, and those have gone to Republican representatives. Now, if you go over to the Republican-favored districts, we have one seat that has been flipped, and that's in New York 11. But we have also a seat that's been flipped in Pennsylvania 14, which has gone to a Republican candidate. Now, it should also be noted that these are Republican-favored districts, and Republicans have also taken Florida 6, Florida 16, Florida 18, Florida 25, Ohio 1, Virginia 5, Wisconsin 1, and West Virginia 3. So right now we still are neck and neck where we don't know where the House is going to go, but we'll have live updates as the night progresses and as more races have been called. Back to you, Gabby.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Morgan, for that national update at the desk. And I guess when we were talking about Mark, we were talking about the 2020 election and what that means for Democrats.
Right.
Looking into a House that they might get, but of course the Senate, that's a losing battle for them as well. Yeah.
Right. If the GOP ends up taking the House at the end of tonight or whenever we find out, it could be a totally different story from the things that we were talking about with Mark and the things that some of the polls have been predicting so far prior to today.
That's right. And it is now 8 o'clock on the West Coast here. That means California polls have closed and voters are now
sealing their ballots,
that's right,
putting it in, getting it all done, and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's right. And at LA right now, we have one of those polling places that has just ended. We have a live reporter, Evan Falstrup, at the Hoover Recreation Center here near campus. Evan, tell us what's happening. I know the polls have closed, so what's the vibe over there?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, JP and Gabby. So we've been here at the Hoover Recreation Center here throughout the night. And if you can see here to my left, we spoke to a few voters as they came in and out of the polling station throughout the night. And the polling station just closed as of now. And it's been calming down as we've been here. The vibe has been very calm and distilled. But the main impression we've been getting from voters is that they have felt in this election, they really have felt a duty to come out and participate. We actually spoke with a first-time voter just right here a few minutes ago, who's an immigrant of the United States, recently became a citizen of the United States. And as soon as he got this citizenship, he told us he immediately felt the duty to come out and participate. And we've seen the amount of registered voters in this election. We've seen the importance of their vote in this election, the significance. And our impression is that we're going to see likely one of the biggest voter turnouts in U.S. history overall. So as the results begin to come out in California, we'll be keeping you posted throughout the night. We'll be at an election party very soon. Back to you in the studio. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Evan. We'll come back to him again later tonight. Things I'm sure, are going to be clearing out because the polls are ending, but we'll be back to him just up the street on Hoover.
Yeah, that's right. And again, in LA, we are covering the governor race as well. At the Newsom Watch Party at downtown LA, we have Madeline Audley at the scene right now. Maddie, what's the scene right there in downtown LA?
Thank you so much, guys. I'm still here in downtown Los Angeles at the Gavin Newsom campaign headquarters. The doors are just opening now to all of these invited guests. They're expecting about 1,000 people, and if you can hear behind me, there is already well over 250 people here. I am joined now with one of those guests. I'm with Elizabeth Wells of Planned Parenthood. Elizabeth, what brought you out tonight for this event?
Well, I'm here on behalf of Planned Parenthood, and we're here because Gavin Newsom and his partner, Jennifer Siegel Newsom, have been longtime supporters for Planned Parenthood. So we're here to support them and looking forward to what's coming up next. So thank you for having us.
And why is this race so important for female voters in the state of California?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I mean, we all remember what it was like that first day after the 2016 election. It was devastating to women and to non-binary people and to immigrants and so many of Planned Parenthood's patient populations. And the last 2 years, we've just been like climbing and reaching for civil rights and human rights and healthcare access that we thought we had that is now like we're seeing disappear. So it's more important than ever to vote for the people and to elect candidates and champions for reproductive healthcare and equity like Gavin Newsom. And so tonight we're really excited to see the results roll in and to see champions for reproductive sexual health care and equity be elected to so many offices in California and in the country.
Great, and you're excited. It seems like everybody in this room behind me is excited. What are your expectations going into this evening?
Oh, going into this evening, wow. Well, I've always wanted to be cautious, right? I mean, we saw what happened when we got too excited in 2016. So being cautious going into this year, but also like feeling really good about it. I mean, unfortunately, we saw some back steps maybe in the Senate results, but the House results coming in are looking pretty good. And it's ecstatic to see what's going on, to see what kind of races and people are going to see elected at the statewide assembly, state senate, and our state constitutional offices. So we're all giddy with excitement down here, and Planned Parenthood is up there at the front just ready and ready to hear what's next.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Elizabeth. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Like I said, the doors just opened. People are pouring in. Now, 9:45 is the time to watch. That's when Gavin Newsom and his wife are expected to hit that stage right behind me. We're going to have updates for you as the night goes on. Again, live in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Madeline Otterly, and I will send it back to you.
Thanks so much, Madeline. Things are sure kicking up over there at the Newsom watch party. We're going to take it now back to Norwalk with Miriam Fuentes for an update on everything that's going down there at that registrar's office. Miriam?
Hi everyone, this is Miriam Fuentes. We are still here at the LA County Registrar's office here in Norwalk. 5 million registered voters for this midterm election. We saw a line where like hundreds of them had to come here to Norwalk to be able to cast their provisional vote. A big part of casting in these votes has to do with the security measures that take place. I'm here with Sergeant Steve Mills, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the process of getting these ballots counted and secured to the place they need to be. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about the process that your team plays in getting these votes out?
Yes, we work at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Aero Bureau. We have a fleet of helicopters that we use in patrol. And we have about 6 or 7 helicopters tonight that we actually fly out of Long Beach, and we fly to the different ballot collection places such as Lancaster, Santa Clarita, El Monte, Santa Monica, Torrance, Van Nuys, Brackett in Laverne, to name a few of them. And we pick up, those are where all the ballots come from, the polling places. They're driven to those locations. We pick them up in sealed bags, and we get a count sheet. The helicopters fly these ballots to the library here next to the Registrar Recorder's office, and then they're transported from the helicopters into a van and then driven across the street where they're counted.
And you've been doing this for a while. Tell me a little bit about the turnout that you saw today.
Well, the turnout that I'm looking at here today is the biggest that I've seen. I've been doing this about 7 years myself, and it is the biggest that I've seen so far. Yes.
How many more helicopters can we expect to see tonight?
Well, you're going to see the 7 that are going to be coming in and out. They're going to be making multiple runs. So they could be making up to 4 or 5 runs per helicopter. So you could see about 35 landings here tonight.
And you guys also play a big role in security, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the bags, when they come onto the helicopter, are secured and sealed. And as soon as that helicopter goes airborne with those secured bags, it makes no landings anywhere else except right here at the library parking lot. And so when the bags come out, we check the seal, make sure they're still sealed, and then they go across the street.
All right, thank you so much, Sergeant Steve. Again, we are still here. We are going to be trying to give you live shots of these helicopters coming in and out with all the votes that will be secured and counted here in Norwalk. If you guys can see, we are seeing a little bit, we can hear some of the helicopters approaching right now. It may be a few minutes before they actually land. Again, we'll have coverage of this and footage of this for you guys to check out, hopefully in the next shot. But again, a big process that takes place here in Norwalk to get all of these votes counted and secured. So yeah, this is Miriam Fuentes. We'll take it back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much, Miriam. Very interesting.
Yeah.
For those of you just tuning in, we are live on Facebook right now at USC Annenberg Media for live election result coverage all night as the results roll in.
Yeah, and just as Miriam was talking about the helicopters getting ballots for them being safe and secure, it just goes to show like how important voting is. And
I know.
Ballots need to be safe.
Right, I've never ridden in a helicopter, but my vote has. That's high up there in the importance level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting. But I'm assuming it gets them there faster. so we can start getting those results in quicker.
That's right. That's right. And again, polls have closed already. It's been 9 minutes since the polls have closed in California and the West Coast. But here in studio, here in studio, we'll have another guest. We have a lot of, again, students, a full house again. Well, kind of dwindling down a bit after the
couple of the big announcements that came out.
Yeah, the Republicans taking the Senate. But we still have a lot of stragglers, a lot of people still tuning in about the House races right now. Yeah. And we have a lot here, even activist groups behind us. And we have a lot of students, a lot of faculty perspective coming in, and we have our own live reporters again at the lobby trying to gauge that student's perspective and seeing what the reactions are at full time in live right now with us. So we have one of our reporters going in right now, that is Cecil Hannibal on the floor right now. Cecil, tell us about what's happening with the students. Actually, we do not have that with it. We'll get back to
Not ready yet. Later, we'll come back to him again when some students are ready to talk with us.
Yeah. But in studio right now, actually, we have Austin Pay. He is the political editor here at Annenberg Media, our student-run organization. And so, he's
going to be joining
us.
Right Come
the table
join
right
us at this seat.
Yeah.
Welcome. So great to have you on our show tonight.
Thanks you guys for having me. Sorry, let me fix this chair.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, good.
How are you guys?
Doing great.
Awesome,
Good election night so far?
Yeah. So as the political editor here at Annenberg Media, what is some of the coverage that you've been doing ahead of tonight, or also what are some of the the big news stories going to be tomorrow in the coming days?
Sure. So for the coverage that we've been doing so far, a lot of it is geared toward USC students, obviously. So that's been a lot of these California races. A big thing of note for this year was House races that Hillary Clinton won in 2016 that had Republican representatives. So a lot of those are in Orange County. That's districts like the 49th, the 48th, and the 38th as well. So we've been sort of analyzing those, taking a look at the governor's race for this year as well, and the senator's race. This is sort of the first viable challenger that Dianne Feinstein has had in her long tenure as the Senate. So it's an interesting race to keep track of that I think a lot of people aren't really looking at. In terms of post-election coverage, I think the big thing is going to be sort of how legislation is going to work in Washington for the next couple of years, right? Most likely, as most media sources are predicting, we're going to have a Democratic House and a Republican Senate. What that means is that very little legislation will probably get passed in D.C. for the next couple of years. A similar occurrence was during 2006, sort of when George W. Bush was president. It was a Republican House and a Democratic, I believe it was a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, and what that meant was people were waiting for the next president to come in. The difference between then and 2020 is that this is not a for sure that this is Donald Trump's last year as president, right? He could win re-election in 2020. So it's going to be sort of analyzing how that dynamic might work for the next couple of years, and I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, and I guess looking forward to the 2020 election, a lot of USC students and college students all around the world have been getting out to vote, whether it be from March of Our Lives or the Me Too movement, a lot of that social, movements going into voting. How do we see that in the 2020 election?
A big thing this year is something I'd like to call like student activists, I think, and that's not, that doesn't mean you're involved in a group or something, but if you're a friend who's invested in politics, like I'm sure everyone at this desk is, we're telling our friends to vote, right? We're getting out and we're encouraging them to make sure they're registered, make sure they're voting, and make sure they're doing it with the right knowledge. A big thing in 2020, I think, is, it seems close, but it's still pretty far off relatively, is making sure that all of our friends know what's going on, is aware, and making sure that we use social media and things like that to ensure that we have the most educated student body, that when they vote, they know what they're voting for.
Mm-hmm. And as a student here on campus, what have been some of the conversations you've been having with your friends, as you were talking about in the days leading up to today? How has everything shifted as we drew closer to today?
A big thing is, what are the midterm elections? Sort of like, what is the point of this? For a lot of kids on campus right now, 2016 was the first year that we could vote, right? It was for me, for sure, and that was the year that I definitely got engaged and I wanted to get involved in what was going on. So for a midterm election, we see notably lower turnout than a presidential election. This midterm election has sort of changed that, right? We've got a lot more engagement on campus from students who may have been a bit confused during the 2016 election and didn't know what was going on. So going into this midterm cycle, the conversation that I've had with friends is sort of, what's the point of this? You know, what are we voting for? Who am I voting for? What's going on? Which I've tried to help as often as I can, as much as I can, but it's hard sometimes when you've got a student body or someone who hasn't really been invested in politics now suddenly having to take a step in, like put that toe into the water. So I think it's really interesting.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that we didn't touch upon yet during the coverage is the California propositions. And how do you think student voters see those as well? Yeah.
That's a great question. It's really interesting because it's such a diverse array of propositions, right? So we've got a lot of things about sort of bonds in this state. The gas tax is a big one as well. Daylight savings time. And rent control. So just rattling through them really quickly, I think the first four are things that I think a lot of students might gloss over because it's, however many billions of dollars the state would be putting into things like a homelessness initiative for like housing and for the mentally ill as well. Those things are interesting, but I think students may gloss over that for the more juicy sort of interesting ones like the gas tax. That's a big one, and it especially affects USC students who commute. So recently, Annenberg Media, the politics desk, put out an article about the 3 most important propositions for USC students. I would highly recommend giving it a read. Essentially, we laid out why it matters to USC students, which in the case of the gas tax, if you're a commuting student, that proposition could affect you in both ways. One is the gas tax increase would remain, but also there's the possibility that the infrastructure around campus would be improved as well, because I know that's something I sort of deal with. I longboard, right, and I'm always going over potholes and stuff. It's unfortunate.
Right.
Prop 10 is rent control, right? That's super important as well for USC students who, a lot of us are renters. USC only has guaranteed housing for freshman year students. So for all of the housing around campus, rent control is a super important thing. Daylight savings times as well, sort of, I feel like that's one that gets glossed over a bit, and I wish it didn't.
Right.
Beyond where you fall on the science of it, I think it's a thing that sort of we went through in high school and didn't really think about, right? We were just like, daylight savings times, we assume it's something you have to do, you switch your clock back or whatever.
Right.
Now, what Prop 7 will allow is the ability for the California legislature to just get rid of that entirely. And again, going back to those commuting students, if you're arriving at campus and it's still dark outside or it's even lighter outside, that's going to affect a lot about how you go to school. We're notoriously sleepy creatures, right? So it's an important thing that I wish more students would keep in mind.
Right. Just a note on that one, it may be because they're sort of glossing over or not paying as much attention as you say should be given, is because Prop 7 is only going to sort of be the catalyst for this process to start. So, we might not see the daylight saving time as a permanent thing for like many years. So
absolutely,
that's a factor as well.
There's something about sort of the bureaucracy right in the legislature of it that it's a lot of people won't really pay attention to it if it doesn't have an immediate outcome. But I think that first step in that process is something that's really important for students, and especially as a second-time voter in 2018, that's something that I want to have a say in, right? Even if it is for the future, even if it is after I've graduated.
Awesome. Right.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for your insight and perspective.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, great chatting with you.
We'll be talking more about the California props more tonight as the results come in for California.
Yes.
And right now we do have our live reporter at the Annenberg lobby. So tell us what we have with our student perspective out there right now.
Thanks, guys. I'm still here in Wallace Annenberg Hall reporting live at the watch party where students and faculty are still gathered, still crowded in the room. I will say the crowd has thinned out just a little bit, but the cheers, the boos have not, and many of those have been led by you. Welcome, Brianna Johnson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can you tell me who you were cheering for and who you were not cheering for?
Yeah, so I was cheering the most for Beto O'Rourke. I'm from Texas, and I really wanted him to win. But in general, the Democrats up and down the ballot.
You were telling me earlier that you actually flew back home to Texas earlier this week or last week to canvass for him?
Yep, I flew back for him last week to make sure that during the GOTV, during early voting, that we could reach as many people as possible.
And what was that experience like for you?
I'd gone in really, because I had been back to Texas, a month before, just a couple weeks ago, and I was expecting Beto he had all the energy behind him. I mean, every single yard sign was for him. But then going back, it was clear that Ted Cruz had put more effort into his GOTV campaign and was trying to get more people out. So it was, I didn't know what to think, especially canvassing in general is very rewarding, but also feels, you're only reaching the people who weren't going to be voting before. And so it can be kind of disheartening, but it also was very worthwhile, and I was glad I did it. I speak Spanish a little bit, so I was able to get some Spanish-speaking voters out who weren't reached before, and that felt really great.
Well, I'm sure you were a little disappointed with the results, but good job on the good work.
Thanks.
But what about the races that have yet to be determined? Do you still have hope in those?
Yeah, I do. Well, I mean, we'll see in Georgia. I mean, to be honest, it does not look like Stacey Abrams is doing too well, but I do want to put a plug for my new congressman is Colin Allred. So Pete Sessions, who was a very important Republican in the House, I believe he was the chair of the Rules Committee, and he has been voted out. Instead, Colin Allred, who is wonderful, is my new congressman, and I, a Democrat, could not be happier. And so while Beto, it was disappointing that he lost ultimately, he brought up a lot of the other Democrats, the votes for them around the state. And so ultimately, I mean, he has done the state and the country, I think, a real favor.
That's great to hear. Congratulations on your win. You were telling me that you're here with a group called CCLP.
Yeah.
What does that stand for, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so this event was co-hosted with the Center for the Political Future, but also the institute that I work for called the Center on Communication, Leadership, and Policy. It's kind of a think and do tank run here at Annenberg. So we do research, that's the think part, and events like this, just trying to make sure that students are connected in issues of communication, policy, public policy and politics and technology. And so, we do a whole hodgepodge of things, but it's a really wonderful place to work for.
And you were telling me that you actually just graduated from USC with a degree in political science. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what are your plans to do now that you've graduated?
Well, I'm working here for the next year. I'm trying to determine my next step, but there's a couple of things. I'm thinking either political speech writing or going into education policy.
Very cool. Best of luck to you. Thank you so much for your time and talking to us. We will be here through 9 o'clock watching the rest of the results come in. Thanks. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much, Rory. And we have an update. Trump takes to Twitter saying, "Tremendous success tonight. Thank you to all." !
Yeah, definitely talking about the Republicans and taking the Senate back as well.
Right.
So he'll push his agenda even more for the next 2 years, and I guess seeing and we'll get more updates from him.
Right, I'm sure this will not be his last time on Twitter tonight and in the coming days.
Yeah.
For now, we're going to check in with another one of our reporters down in San Diego. We have Keith DeMolder at the Cox Party. Keith?
Take control of the House.
Thanks, folks. Well, we're here at the Republican Watch Party in downtown San Diego where, Keith, a lot has happened in the last couple of minutes. The polls closed at 8 p.m. and results just started trickling in. Currently, we have a screen back here that's reporting scores and results as they come in live. Currently, it's reporting that about 2.8% of the scores and reports and votes are currently in. But Keith, according to Fox News National, they actually called this governor race already in favor of Gavin Newsom. What was the reaction to the folks here in the room when they heard that?
Angel, you could feel the air just dissipate out of this room. You felt a lot of shoulders just sag down in disappointment, and actually a lot of boos that came up as Dianne Feinstein also won the Senate race here in California too. So there's a couple boos here or there, but as we mentioned, it was Fox News who reported it. We still have results coming in right now. 2.8% of precincts reporting in this race for California governor. So maybe the prediction could be wrong. Maybe John Cox could pull this one out. Either way, Fox News reported it first that it's going to be Gavin Newsom being the next governor of California. But we don't want to speak too soon. John Cox still has a chance.
Absolutely. And we see the Democrats with a win here in California, the Golden State. But in addition to that, they take control of the House. You mentioned Feinstein coming away with that victory. Just how big is that for the Democrats to come away with the victory? California still remains dominant democratically.
Oh, absolutely. They look into. So we have
it's a packed room, folks.
Exactly. Live shot here, folks. But very, very zealous fan here from 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 the watch party here at the Cox watch party. Either way, though, huge for the Democrats. As you mentioned, that trifecta earlier. If Newsom ends up being governor, they control, Senate, House, everything. They're trying to get that trifecta once again. And right now, it's huge for the Democrats, just nationwide, to get that control in the House, because we've seen the Republicans control both the Senate and the House, and in government, it's been gridlocked. We've been seeing a lot of control from the Republicans, passing certain bills here or there. Obviously, the Kavanaugh hearing wouldn't have gone through if it wasn't for that Republican majority in Congress.
Yeah.
So this was huge for Dianne Feinstein to get her spot, but more so, really, this entire Democratic bloc to get that House. Super important, and also we could see it important come next election that they have the majority.
All right, Keith, thank you very much for the update. We'll have more here as more propositions are voted on and as more results come in for John Cox. So back to you folks in the studio.
Thanks so much, Keith and Angel. It's definitely packed house there.
Yeah, definitely, just like over here.
Mm-hmm.
And now we, as long as we, cover Cox as well, we also cover Newsom.
Absolutely.
On downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have either Trevor or Maddie covering that as well. And I think they'll have even more of a.
Okay, we're just getting word. We're gonna head to Newsom later. Right now, we're gonna check back in at UCLA with one of our other reporters, Tyra Majors, see what's going out down there with the Bruins. Tyra.
Yeah, Gabby and JP, students have been coming in and out of this ballroom here at UCLA, just keeping up with the election results. As you can see behind me, there's a CNN screening, and there's also a screening over there showing Fox News. That no one's sitting over there, but most of the students are here watching CNN. A representative of this university who actually helped organize this event told me that almost 350 students were here today, just coming in and out in between classes. As classes were getting out, students were coming in, just doing their homework, keeping up with the results. Now, when it was announced that the Democrats would take over the U.S. House, many of the students were very happy. I have one of them here with me, Jamie Walker. She's an English major here at UCLA. Now, Jamie, tell me, why was this what you were hoping?
Well, I think the Republicans that are in power right now need to check on their power. I really don't agree with the tax cuts for the rich. That's going to further destabilize the middle class as it is and really cause the lower class to suffer. I don't like the attacks on our health care. I don't like the fact that the people Trump has chosen for positions are mostly unqualified for those positions, like our current Secretary of Education. Those reasons and more are why.
Okay, and earlier we were talking about just different propositions, and you said Proposition 10 was something that you were really, really, hoping that will get passed. You wanted yes on Prop 10. Why?
I think the cost of living in California has become outrageous. In San Diego, a one-bedroom apartment is at least $1,200, and that's ridiculous. That is just straight up ridiculous. It's forcing people that have been California natives to move out of the state because it's gotten too expensive to live here. I think Prop 10 will help lower the cost of living.
And as a student, that's very important to you, right? Okay, and you told me that you took measures to get a mail-in ballot. You wanted to vote early on. Why was that particularly important to you to just get out there and vote this year's midterm election?
Well, I think this year's midterm elections are especially important considering just how unhappy so many of us are with our government and the direction our country is going,
Okay, well, we'll probably come back here in a couple of minutes, a couple of hours. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Back to the studio.
Thank you so much, Tyra, there at UCLA. But in one update right now, we're getting an extremely close Florida race, the governorship over there. Ron DeSantis has 49.9%, and Andrew Gillum has 48.9%, with 99% of the precincts reporting with that. So it's a very tight race.
Yeah, that's very close. Ron is the Republican, and Andrew Gillum is the Democrat in that race.
Mm-hmm. And definitely Ron DeSantis is definitely a pro-Trump supporter, voting with them and his policies. And with Andrew Gillum, he was the mayor of Tallahassee, and he's running on a big progressive movement And you can see those two extremes of each, well, not extremes, but definitely different sides of the political spectrum going head to head at the state of Florida, a swing state that could be in the
That's
election.
one we've been keeping our eye on all night, and we're going to be interested in seeing here in a few.
But staying more in California here, we have, just as we saw the John Cox party with Keith and Angel, we have with Trevor Sahaki, our live reporter at the Newsom watch party. He has a guest right there with him. Trevor, what's over there?
Good evening, guys. I'm live here in downtown LA at Gavin Newsom's watch party at the former LA Wall Street. Now, I am here and there is a bunch of people here. I'll tell you, this place is getting very, very packed very quickly. And they have MSNBC on the screen behind me. And just a couple minutes ago, they projected Gavin Newsom would win, and a resounding cheer let out throughout the entire crowd. And only a minute ago or so, they just projected that Dianne Feinstein would win as well. And again, another cheer came out from all the attendees. I actually have one of the attendees here tonight, Mark Taylor. He was just released from prison 2 months ago. Now, Mark, why are you here tonight?
I'm here to encourage, first, to thank Gavin Newsom for winning this. And excuse me 1 second. I'm here to encourage Gavin Newsom to continue criminal justice reform in the state of California. Under Governor Brown's leadership, California has taken bold steps to reform our criminal justice system, and I want to ensure that continues. And I also want to speak for those who are still locked in prison, who are fully rehabilitated, who can be released today, who no longer pose a threat to society.
Now, what have you, I guess, learned from your time, spent incarcerated behind bars that you think you could take to be a criminal activist or criminal reform activist?
The primary thing is everyone is capable of change. And if you give them the right tools, they will change. I believe in second chances, and I believe California is moving in that direction. Mass incarceration is a problem in this country, and I believe California is at the forefront of solving that problem. I hope Governor Gavin Newsom will continue to do that.
Now, do you think if the steps that you've just outlined are taken, that the rest of the country could follow as well? I mean, these midterms are largely seen as, an expression on what Trump has done in his first 2 years in office. Do you think that, California can, set the precedent for the rest of the nation?
I believe in California, historically, we have done that throughout decades and decades, and I believe we're doing that today by electing him as governor. And I believe by electing him as governor, that is a rejection of Donald Trump and his policies. So I believe we're moving in the right direction, but he does have to take bold steps in order to get us where we need to go.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate it. Once again, I'm live. I'm Trevor Sahaki. I'm live here. Oh, there are the cheers behind me. There you go, right behind me. MSNBC again projected Gavin Newsom as the winner of this governor's race. I'm Trevor Sahaki reporting live in downtown LA. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Trevor. Well, earlier we saw that our conversations on Twitter this year are upward of 1.2 million conversations on Twitter, and that is, again, about 4 times higher than in 2014. Now, I'm joined with Professor Levesque, who has been analyzing all of these different results. So what exactly are we seeing here? What does this high volume mean?
Well, I think what is interesting about this, when we look to the previous midterm election, there was only about 338,000 for the entire day. We're not even at the entire day yet, and we're already up to almost 1.3 million Twitter posts in the United States talking about the election. So the interest in this election is substantially 4 times higher than it was in the previous midterm.
And then in terms of the sentiment down here, earlier we saw it was about 72% positive, and it's since dropped about 2%. Why do you think that has seen a
Well, we were
decrease?
seeing a lot of the positive sentiment earlier was caused by people getting out to encourage people to vote. It was that from 6 a.m. to whenever the polls closed, you saw it was that positive, let's do it, let's get out, let's participate, let's vote. And since the polls have closed, we've seen that drop in the positive sentiment.
And then what are some other emotions that we're seeing online on Twitter?
So if we look at, this is a plotting over the entire day today of any post that had the artificial intelligence was able to identify an emotion on. And what we saw similar to that positive was a lot of joy post early in the day, which was part of that positive. The joy in voting, the joy in urging people to get out and vote. Our other emotions have been fairly consistent, very little surprise so far, 8% disgust and 19% sadness. When we did see an increase in the fear and some of the sadness, wasn't that 5, 6 o'clock hour when they started announcing some of the Texas, Florida, and what was going on in Georgia. So it did correlate to what was happening within some of those bigger races that were being watched.
And recently we just heard that Florida has been decided. Can we see what the conversations are like online with that decision?
So we're looking at a topic conversations, the big buckets of what people are talking about. We have segmented this from 5 p.m. West Coast time on it. And what we're really seeing are those major conversations. The Florida conversation, the Stacey Abrams conversations, more Stacey Abrams, some of the Texas O'Rourke conversations. So it really is fixated and focused right now on those major top races that were taking place in Florida, Texas, and Georgia.
And this conversation wheel does not include the recent California results. How do you think that that will affect the emotions online we'll see in the coming times?
Well, it might see an increase in joy among Californians, which might see more disgust and fear from others that don't like what California does. So it really is contextually playing on who is posting it, where are they from, and what their belief system is as to what it means. But I think among most Californians, you're going to see a lot more joy and positive association with it. And we may see California move into the light here, especially when we start looking at some of those House races that they're looking to increase the margin of Democrats taking over control of the House.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll keep you updated on more of the results and how they're affecting online. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Nikki and Professor Matt Levesque. Yeah, definitely looking at social media, we see a lot of, definitely, trying to see a lot of the appraisal and a lot of applause coming into the 2018 election, thinking, Democrats or Republicans trying to, gain a lot of these seats. But we also see, a lot of the outrage, I guess. We see.
Right. Everyone takes to social media for all of their opinions, everything they think is going on. So it's really interesting to see those insights from Twitter and all of those graphics that Nikki's been working hard on, as well as Matthew. Those are super interesting, very important in just how big social media is during big news cycles like this.
That's right. That's right. And again, we're coming up onto California here. We're talking about a lot of the packages. I know we had Austin Pei. He was the Annenberg Media political editor, and he was talking about how those propositions affect student voters here at USC and or across the country as well.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so Proposition 6 would let voters decide if they want to pay less at the gas pump, but at what cost? Reporter Miriam Fuentes spoke about and to these advocates on both sides of this issue.
Like most drivers, Wendy Mendez wishes she didn't have to spend so much money on gas.
I would say that a third of my check goes to paying gas, but what can I say? I have to go to school.
Californians pay the highest gas prices in the nation, but Mendez says while she wishes gas was cheaper, she doesn't mind paying extra if it keeps roads safe.
I can pay more if it helps us get better streets.
Voters across the state will weigh in by voting on Proposition 6. Prop 6, known as the gas tax repeal, would eliminate a law passed last year that raised taxes and vehicle registration fees. That money was targeted for road repairs and other transportation funds.
A lot of people out there that are fed up and frustrated, and they're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore.
San Diego City Councilman Carl DeMaio has been holding rallies across the state. His goal? To encourage voters to support Prop 6. He and other advocates say the gas tax is a burden on working-class families.
But it will provide working families with the relief they need for their bills at a time when cost of living is too high.
San Dimas resident Wendy Gish supports eliminating the tax because she says living in California is expensive enough.
Because no one's going to be able to afford to live in this state if we continue with these crazy taxes.
Opponents say striking down the gas tax means less money for much-needed road repairs, such as this one.
You want kids to be able to get to school safely when they're walking. You want commuters to have safe, smooth rides.
so that their cars aren't being damaged by potholes, that the lines are visible for safer driving.
Prop 6 would also require voters to approve any future gas and transportation-related taxes. For Annenberg TV News, this is Miriam Fuentes.
Great package by Miriam.
Yeah, definitely. Do you drive a car on campus?
Yes, I do. I live on campus, but driving around LA, you obviously need a car.
Yeah.
So gas is just
Yeah.
gas prices are an issue on everyone's
absolutely.
mind, especially in LA. It's just such a place for driving cars.
Yeah, I used to, like last semester I did bring my car.
Okay.
But, after, gas prices going up, it's too much.
I know.
It's honestly too
It's a
much.
motivation to try and walk everywhere, bike,
or-
metro, something like that.
That's right, yeah. And so now we are going to Evan at a watch party in downtown LA. Evan, tell us what's happening over there.
One of his classes, actually.
I had one of his classes 30 years ago.
Hi, we are on at the Los Angeles County Democratic Watch Party with Congressman Brad Sherman. How are you doing tonight?
Well, it's a great outcome for the House of Representatives, not so good for the Senate, and a continuation of a country that's divided and a Washington, D.C. that's divided.
So with the Democrats taking the House, what do you think will happen to the speakership? Will Nancy Pelosi maintain it?
You ever watch a Super Bowl and at the end one team wins and they're opening the champagne and they're so thrilled to win? Do they ever fire the coach at the same time? No. We didn't just win. We won by a substantial majority. We did so under Coach Pelosi's leadership, and I think she'll be our leader. I think there are a handful of Democrats that will choose not to vote for her for Speaker, at least in the public floor vote. But with this kind of majority, if we lose 5 or even 10 votes, we might still be okay.
And what are your takes on the Republicans gaining seats in the Senate?
Well, the gain that they have is bigger than you're going to report, because you're going to count Republicans and say they gained 2 or 3. But 3 of the most anti-Trump Republican senators are gone. Senator McCain died, Jeff Flake is gone, Corker is gone, and so the new Senate will be even more pro-Trump than just 3 additional seats or 2 additional seats.
So will this increase political polarization with Democrats having control of the House and Republicans having this kind of what you describe as more extreme ideological control of the Senate?
I don't think the country's going to get any more polarized. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have always had significant power in Washington. And now we in the House will have a bit more. But I think the country remains divided. And part of it is the news media, which you're part of. And that is, back in my day, we all watched Walter Cronkite, and he told us what was happening in Vietnam. And then we argued about our different opinions, but we all started with the same facts. Now this country starts with different facts, different stories, different viewpoints, and it's hard to put it together. And obviously, I don't think the president's doing a good job.
So do you think that situation is going to get worse? What do you think this means for 2020?
I think it's going to get better in the sense that Democrats will be in a position to bargain effectively over the appropriations bills and in a position to act as a check on the excesses of the Trump administration. But yes, today is the day of the most important election until the next one. And this does set up 2020.
And the Democrats will be celebrating from here. With that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much. Spring forward, fall back. It's the twice-a-year ritual of changing the clocks for daylight saving time. California voters will decide whether to give state lawmakers the power to change this tradition. Annenberg Media's Taylor Elliott has more on what the proposition means for California.
Those dark winter mornings can make getting out of bed a little bit harder.
And it's hard to wake up when the sun's not up because there's literally like nothing waking you up. You're like, it's still nighttime.
This Sunday, the clocks will fall back, making mornings a little brighter. But without daylight saving time, many people in Los Angeles will start their day before the sun comes up. Sunrise wouldn't be until 7:30 a.m.
I literally am awake before the sun goes up, and I go home when the sun has gone down again.
Say goodbye to that once-a-year extra hour of sleep. Having permanent daylight savings time means no more turning the clocks back in November. But even if California voters decide to make this change, Congress would have to approve, and also the president.
We thought that if people voted for Prop 7, it would be saying to Congress and to the legislature, yeah, we think we should explore this. Maybe ultimately we decide no, we like this change and there's reason to do it.
So why put it on the ballot? The LA Times editorial board see it as a way to open up the conversation about daylight saving time, something we've observed since World War II.
Was intended rather to save energy. That never really happened, but it sort of became this tradition. I think it's really worth continuing having this discussion about whether it's time to end this somewhat pointless tradition.
Until voters decide, make sure to set your clocks back an hour this Sunday, just like every other year. For Annenberg Media, I'm Taylor Elliott.
That's great, yeah. And we have Cecil Hannibal back in the lobby. Looking at behind us right now, not too many students right now. I mean, it is Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, middle of the week.
Yes.
People are probably tired going home, but
yeah.
There's still a good amount of people here. Cecil is talking to them.
Yeah, and we're gonna toss it to one of our live reporters on the scene, Cecil Hannibal. So Cecil, what's happening right behind us?
Hey guys, I'm here in Annenberg lobby. I'm here with Naya Nika, and she is the VP of International of Internal for Trojan Advocates for Political Progress. So tell me, you're big into politics, right? You're from California. How'd you feel about the governor race this year?
It's not really surprising what happened. I think it was pretty clear that Gavin Newsom was going to win. I think the primary was more shocking in some ways, but I think it's great to see a really progressive candidate in office for governor. So it'll be cool to see what he does in opposition to Trump.
So I want to ask you, were there any other races across the country, especially governor races like Georgia, Florida, that shocked you?
I'm disappointed for sure. The Texas Senate race, the Georgia governor's race as well. Definitely disappointed. I wasn't necessarily banking on those races, but I had some hope that maybe there would be, things that were different from the polls. I'm waiting to see what happens in the Nevada Senate. I'm really excited to see what happens. Hopefully we get Jackie Rosen, but we'll see.
Yeah, and so they said that tonight it's very probable that the Democrats taking back the House. Mm-hmm. How do you think that's going to affect the rest of Trump's administration and the rest of the next 2 years?
I think it's a great start to opposition. I think it will be able to push through legislation that has been incredibly difficult to get anything accomplished. But I think it's at least for the next 2 years, it's still going to be a partisan battle. The Republicans are probably still going to have the Senate, so it's just going to be kind of 2 more years of getting through it, trying to block the other side's legislation, and then 2020, hopefully we can come back full swing.
I want to thank you so much for talking
with me.
Yeah,
of course.
We're still here at Annenberg lobby. We'll have more for you guys very soon. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Cecil. Good to hear from students.
Yeah, and as we have an update right now, Twitter says an AP report, Republican Ron DeSantis has won Florida's gubernatorial election against Democratic candidate Andrew Gillum.
Right.
Yeah. So that's definitely a race that we were looking at. It was very tight, but now it came to the wire.
Right.
As Ron DeSantis, Republican governor. Yeah.
Gillum, his opponent, he was right up there with him, hoping to take that, but he's just conceded that DeSantis is the one who has won Florida.
Mm-hmm. And taking it again right now in LA County, we have Miriam Fuentes and Taylor Elliott at Norwalk at the Registrar's office. Both of you guys, tell us what's happening over there.
Looks like her mic was not working right now. We'll try to get that working, and then we're going to come right back to them and see what's happening down in Norwalk. Mm-hmm. For now, we're on to some Prop 10 explanations. So one of the most contested propositions on the ballot today was about rent control. Annenberg Media's Madeline Audley spoke to both sides about what's at stake.
Renting in Los Angeles can come at a high cost. And in the last 5 years, that cost has gone up more than 27%.
And you hear stories about kids having to do their homework in closets, about multiple families living in one-bedroom units.
Cynthia Strathman runs a South LA nonprofit. She says rents are out of control. The California Budget and Policy Center found that just under a third of Californians spend more than half their income on rent.
It makes it very difficult to plan for the future. It makes it difficult to create a stable home for your children.
This election, California voters will decide if local leaders across the state should have more freedom when it comes to rent control. That's the idea behind Prop 10.
So in some sense, Prop 10 doesn't really do anything, but it just allows for the opportunity if municipal governments want to take actions with respect to rent stabilization.
Several cities in California have rent control, but it's largely confined to older buildings, like this one. That's partly due to a 20-year-old law called the Costa-Hawkins Act.
Prop 10 would repeal that law, and among other things, it would allow cities to put newer buildings, like this one, under rent control.
Opponents say rent control will make California's affordable housing shortage worse.
It'll really create a chilling effect among developers to actually want to do buildings, provide housing.
And if developers stop building, experts say prices will likely keep going up. Mayor Garcetti and LA's City Council have endorsed Prop 10, and so has California's Democratic Party. But both of California's gubernatorial candidates and the California Chamber of Commerce have opposed it. Today, it was up to voters to decide. For Annenberg Media, I'm Madeline Ottley.
And we're back. So we just want to give an update on the national races. So right now we have Democrats winning 161 races, and we have Republicans at 162. Now, what's interesting about this is that Democrats have gained 20 seats, whereas Republicans have lost 20 seats. Now, let's go into the details of exactly what those races are. Now, in the toss-up category, we have Virginia 2 with Elaine Luera. We have New Jersey 7, Tom Malinowski beat Leonard Lance. Illinois 14, Lauren Underwood. And Texas 32, Colin Allred. And Iowa 3, Cindy Axney. So it seems like a lot of these Democrats are really picking up these toss-up districts.
Yeah, for sure. I think that with the Senate, we saw a little bit of a loss from the Democratic side, but clearly with the House, we're seeing a bit of return of the blue tide. And we continue to see a lot of the toss-ups being predicted for the Democratic margins. And
absolutely. Yeah, and we also, there's also something to note here is that there's been a lot of races where we've had a lot of first-time candidates. So what I mean by that is, you know, Michigan and Minnesota, they elected their first Muslim women to serve in Congress. That's Rashida Tlaib in Michigan and Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. Jared Polis won as governor of Colorado, the first openly gay man, yeah, the openly gay governor to win Colorado. And in Iowa 1, Democrat Abby Finkenhauer, she beat GOP Republican Rod Bloom, and she's going to be one of the youngest women to ever serve in Congress. So I think that that's super interesting that we're seeing a lot of these first. So it shows that a lot of the demography is actually starting to shift in Congress.
yeah, no, for sure. And I'm just hearing now that a few of the results are coming in for the California propositions. And so we can go back to the studio for those. Okay. So Prop 1 is coming in now and is the Housing Programs and Veterans Loans Bond. So this prop would issue $4 billion in bonds for housing programs and veteran home loans. As we can see here, 50% are going yes and 50% are going no, with 12% reporting. Okay, and in Prop 2 is the Use Millionaires Tax Revenue, and this prop authorizes state to use revenue from millionaires tax for $2 billion in bonds for homeless prevention housing. And here we can see that 57% are reporting in yes and 43% are reporting in no, with 12% reporting in. For Prop 3, we have the Water Infrastructure and Watershed Conservation Bond Initiative, which issues $8.877 billion in bonds for water-related infrastructure and environmental projects. Here we see a bit of a loss, with 48% reporting yes and 52% reporting no. Prop 4, which proposes Children's Hospital Bonds Initiative, issues $1.5 billion in bonds for children's hospitals. Here we see 56% reporting yes and 44% reporting no. For Prop 5, we have the Property Tax and Transfer Initiative. This revises processes for home buyers who are age 55 or older and severely disabled to transfer their tax assessments. Here we see a 45% reporting yes and 55% reporting no. Prop 6, we have the Voter Approval for Future Gas and Vehicle Taxes and 2017 Tax Repeal Initiative. So this was one of the more contentious props on the ballot, and this repeals the 2017 fuel tax for vehicle fee increases and requires a public vote on future increases. We see a 47% vote on yes and a 53% vote on no. For Prop 7, we have the Permanent Daylight Savings Time measure, which authorizes legislature to provide for permanent daylight savings time if the federal government allows. Here, we see a 61% voting yes and a 49% voting no. For Prop 8, we have limits on dialysis clinics and revenue and required refunds initiative. This prop requires dialysis clinics to issue refunds for revenue above a certain amount. And here we see 41% reporting in yes and 59% reporting in no. For Prop 10, the Local Rent Control Initiative, this repeals the Costa-Hawkins rent control law, which allows rent control to go to local governments. And here we see 39% reporting yes, while 61% are reporting in no. For Proposition 11, we have the Ambulance Employees Paid On-Call Breaks Training and Mental Health Services Initiative, which allows ambulance providers to require workers to remain on call during breaks. This one, we have a 64% reporting in yes and a 36% reporting in no. For our last prop, we have the Farm Animal Confinement Initiative. This bans the sale of meat from animals confined in spaces below specific sizes. Here, we have 57% reporting in yes and 43% reporting in no. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Albert, for that California update. We're going to check back in later as those percentages get a little more increased.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, still at the low levels of the precincts percentages, but as the night goes on, we'll be covering more about those. Yeah.
It's a good hint what we're going to see later in the night, for sure.
Right.
We're going to toss it back to Norwalk. Our reporters there are ready now to give us an update on the registrar's office, the people there, Miriam Fuentes and Taylor Elliott. What do you have for us?
Hey guys, we're still here at the LA County Registrar's Office here in Norwalk. Voter turnout has been quite the thing here at this specific location. We've spoken to several people who have worked this location for several years. They have described the turnout as historic. They've never seen anything like it. According to the LA County Registrar's Office, the LA County clerk himself said that in the 45 years that he's worked here, he's never seen a turnout like this. It's probably the top 3 voter turnouts he's witnessed in the 45 years that he has worked here. Taylor, I mean, we've seen a lot tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have seen in terms of voters?
To say that a lot of people came out here tonight, I would say is probably a little bit of an understatement. I mean, earlier this line was wrapped all the way around the side of the building, zigzagging on and off the sidewalk. But I will say one thing that made waiting in line worth it was the free pizza. You had Good Samaritans and just regular people coming out here and donating dozens of pizzas and just walking around and handing them out. But that's kind of what I've seen. What have you noticed? I know we've kind of been walking around separately today.
Definitely. What I've seen is, like, despite the long lines, people are actually really enthusiastic to come out and have their voice heard. The lines are really long. You guys have heard it. And definitely, but it's definitely been worth it for a lot of people. I'm here in Norwalk. I'm Miriam Fuentes.
And I'm Taylor Elliott. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Miriam and Taylor, down at Norwalk, California, at the Registrar's Office. Now we're going to take it to the John Cox Watch Party in San Diego, where Angel Fiscara has a guest with him right now to see the results of the Republican candidate for governor. So, Angel,
thanks,
what do
guys.
we have?
Well, I'm joined here by John Bragiota here in San Diego at the John Cox Support Party here in downtown San Diego. John, first off, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
It's an honor to be here. And I tell you what, we're going to fight all the way to the end. We're not going to give up. It doesn't matter if Gavin wins. We're not giving up. And that's the message we're sending everyone in California.
Fantastic. I love the cat. I mean, I don't know if you could just show it to the. It's a John Cox supporter here. I just want to hear firsthand. What was your reaction when Fox News National comes out with the news that Newsom's going to win the state?
Disappointing. But we frankly knew that this was a very tough fight because the Democrats have been lying to the American people for a long time. And I'm a son of two legal immigrants to the U.S. Both my parents served, and we got to come back and start to realize that we're all Americans. We all bleed red. America first. This is our country. This is what we have to fight for.
All right, fantastic. Well, we have some announcements here going on behind us. But very quickly, if you could, we got a few announcements. If you could very quickly just let us know, what are your thoughts when you find out that the Senate is going to be run by the Republicans and dominated by the Republicans, and the House is now in control of the Democrats? What are your thoughts when you hear that?
Look, we're still above, we're still in power, and the fact is that the Republicans have the Senate and the White House. Trump is going to continue to work well with the Senate, and the Congress is going to obstruct and is going to hold us, but we're still, we should not be disappointed, people. We are going to continue to run this country with Trump and the White House and the Senate.
All right, midterm elections, obviously always crucial when it comes to a president and what he's able to accomplish. Being a Republican, being that Trump supporter that you say you are, how does tonight change your outlook for the remainder of the Trump presidency?
That's a great question. More fight. More fight. And I'm encouraging everybody in the media and everybody watching right now, don't just be a watcher. Get involved. You can get involved. Everybody can make a difference. We have to make a difference. We have to fight back, and we have to fight corruption, because this is not a political war. This is a fight between good versus evil. A fight between good versus evil.
All right, fantastic, John. Thank you so much for the time. Angel Viscara, back to you folks from San Diego.
Thank you so much, Angel, there at the San Diego watch party for John Cox. Definitely, his guests had a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's an interesting interview. He was definitely excited to be there.
Yeah. Even though his candidate was down in the polls, we see Gavin Newsom is steadily climbing up to be the next governor of California.
Right.
But we haven't gotten there yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll get there once either the polls have called it and AP News has called it as well.
Yes.
So, yeah. And right now, going from San Diego, we also have reporters in the OC, in Irvine as well. We will have Charlotte Scott shortly.
Yes. We have Charlotte right now.
That's right.
She's an OC near Irvine.
That's right. She will be reporting with Colin Taylor, but right now she's at Irvine, California. Charlotte, what do we have right there? Some technical difficulties. There she is right now. Just a little fuzzy, but she might get there.
Thank you, guys. I am at the Katie Porter watch party in Orange County, and it is packed here. I can barely hear anything. There are so many people here, and they're all not all of them, but a lot of them are sporting their orange and blue Katie Porter gear. And with me I have Roger and Leslie Stevers, and they are two Katie Porter supporters. So why are you here today?
We're here because we think Katie Porter is the best candidate to beat Mimi Walters, and we've been working with her since the beginning of the primary election, so we're very involved in this campaign.
What do you mean you've been working with her?
We've vetted the candidates back in July of 2017, and we decided that Katie was the strongest, the most able to beat Mimi Walters, and our mission is to get Mimi Walters out of office.
But how have you been working for her?
What?
We've been door knocking. So between the primary and the general election, I think we called on about 2,500 doors in Orange County.
So why do you think that Katie Porter can beat Mimi Walters? Why do you support Katie Porter?
She's an honest person that interacts with people. Listen, Mimi does not interact, takes money from big money interests, is not involved with her precinct.
And votes for Donald Trump 99% of the time. And she's trying to wrap you up.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Back to you in the studio. I'm Charlotte Scott.
great to hear from Charlotte and those Katie Porter supporters. But now we have breaking news. Gavin Newsom has won the governorship here in California. That's according to the AP. They just called that win. According to the LA Times, it was a 56-44. So another close one. There's a couple points.
Yeah.
You know, not as close as some of the ones that we've seen already tonight, but it's up there. I know Gavin Newsom was already projected to win in the days before tonight, as well as some of those early polls earlier this evening. But this is a big win.
Yeah, definitely for
Democratic governor.
Yeah, California coming up from Jerry Brown as the governor.
Previous.
Previous governor. He was lieutenant governor under him, and so now we're going to take it to Madeline Audley at the watch party. Maddie, what's the excitement happening over there?
After tonight, we're going to continue to do the work. It's time to do the work at another level. Y'all got that, right? We got that.
Thank you guys so much. I am still here live in downtown Los Angeles at the Gavin Newsom campaign headquarters. And as you probably can hear behind me, that's rapper Common up on stage. He just took the stage and everyone in the audience is cheering. There has to be hundreds and hundreds of people behind me, as you can see. And he's been singing, chanting for a California and a United States that supports groups of all different types of diversity. That includes women, African Americans, and Hispanics. And I hope you guys can hear me right now because he is really rocking out. So are all these people down below me. There are supporters of all kinds here. We've had long-term supporters, people who have been with Newsom since the beginning when he was the mayor of San Francisco. And we've had newer supporters who are newly excited about the Newsom campaign. He has been campaigning for this seat for about 3 years, so a lot of these tickets have gone to friends and family who have supported him through that. They're expecting 1,000 people. And as you can see, we are getting close to that. I'll have live updates for you as the night goes on. Everyone here is confident, excited. They're preparing for a victory. For now, I'm going to wrap it up. Send it back to you guys in the studio. Madeline Audley live from downtown.
Wow, so much fun. Very exciting.
Yeah, definitely loud and rowdy over there.
Yeah, it's clearly a lot more fun to be at a place of a winning candidate.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We have some students back here in the Annenberg lobby. We're going to pass it to our reporter, Roy Pinky, and see what their reaction is on California governor.
Thanks, guys. I'm still here on campus at USC reporting from Wallace Annenberg Hall. The crowd by now has thinned out heavily, but I'd say the passion has not. It's still pretty high up. Emotions are running high. And joining me is Maria. She is an intern for the Political Student Assembly. Maria, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you tell me a little about how you've been feeling about tonight and the results so far?
Right. So I think tonight, or at least the lead up to tonight, has been full of trepidation and fear, but also a lot of hope, I think, especially from young people. This has just been sort of, a watershed of events leading up to this day. And a lot of young people are ready to turn out and show, what they're made of and what this young generation will bring in regards to change in the political system. So I think it was really exciting to have this day finally arrive after, all the talk about it. But it was especially cool being on a college campus, as a freshman and seeing, equally passionate young people just sitting here watching the results roll in, and also, seeing everyone line up to vote in Tudor Campus Center, all the talk of people submitting absentee ballots. It was just an amazing experience to be a part of.
You were telling me you're from Wisconsin, so how are you feeling about the results so far from the races in your home state?
Right. I'm actually pretty happy about them. I was a bit nervous because Scott Walker is the incumbent governor, and he has been the incumbent governor since 2010. And so right now the race is very, very close, but it's looking to go in favor of Tony Evers, the Democratic candidate. So that was really cool to kind of see that the balances are finally tipping against the incumbent. And then Tammy Baldwin was up against Leah Vukmir, and Tammy Baldwin already secured her win a couple hours ago. So that was cool to see that landslide victory.
You're obviously pretty passionate about politics and also very active in politics as you're an intern for the political student assembly here on campus. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
So tell me a little about your work with the assembly.
Right. So I am the civic engagement intern for Political Student Assembly. So I work alongside another civic engagement intern under the civic engagement director. So we're kind of this little team that works on the executive board for PSA. So basically, we try to get the word out to students on campus and get them politically involved, see what they can do, because a lot of people are daunted by the notion of politics and getting involved. Sometimes it's not as, it's not bigger than yourself, and it's easy to, take that leap in. Sometimes it's, dipping your toe in, and sometimes it's jumping full on. So, we like to introduce people to the world of politics through, we have trivia, that's kind of dipping the toe in, and then we have town halls and hosting political speakers. So that's kind of, again, like jumping full in and trying to learn as much as you can. But ultimately, it's about learning about the political systems and about the role of being an engaged citizen.
And why do you think it's so important for people of our age, young people, to be an engaged citizen, to learn about the political system?
Right. Simply put, we are the future. And so that isn't necessarily a burden, but it is something that we have to carry on our shoulders and recognize that, we are going to define and reshape the American political climate, and it is in our hands to do so. As we look at our parents and our grandparents and how their political beliefs have shaped over the course of their lives, we have to notice that the same thing is going to happen to us, and how we have to stay on top of things and, realize that we have to keep there has to be a future, ultimately. So if we are going to be the future, we have to secure a future through voting, and voting for things that, will maximize our safety, our happiness, and overall general well-being. So
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for your time, Maria, and good luck with the races in your home state of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
In the final hour, we will still be here reporting live, watching as the election results come in. For now, I'm Roy Pankey reporting live from Wallace-Annenberg Hall. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much, Roy. We have breaking news update. Democrats have picked up the 23 seats they need in the House of Representatives. They're inching their way closer to taking the House. That might be something we see here coming up.
Yeah. Even though, again, as we saw the Republicans still taking control of the Senate, we can see in the upcoming 2 years that the House of Representatives, the Democrats, can actually fight against Trump's agenda.
Right. There's just a couple more wins that we're going to have to pinpoint before we can officially say that.
That's right. And right now we have our live reporters at the Hoover Recreation Center, the Democratic Watch Party. We have Evan Falstrup and we have Luke Scorziel right now reporting to see what their reactions are that the Democrats have done that.
Big news for them. So, do we have Evan and Luke?
Yeah, and we do not have them yet, but we'll get them running again. So talking about the 23 seats that they have right now, so that's definitely
that was the bare minimum that they needed to even have a chance. So now it's looking up. I know the polls earlier in the night were having Democrats freaked out because they were thinking they didn't have a chance after Republicans were sort of taking the lead in that area. But now it's getting closer.
Yeah, and one correction, we have Evan and Luke there, our live reporters. They're not at Hoover Recreation Center, but they are in downtown LA.
And they're ready for us now.
We're here at the Los Angeles County Democratic Watch Party. We actually just now got the chair of the Democratic Party.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So
thank
what do
you
you
so
think
much.
of the results so far?
I think we flipped the House tonight. I think we're very excited about that. I know there's some talk about with the U.S. Senate. But they had 26, we had 9 that we had to flip, but I think it's fine. We're going to win that in 2 years. But right now, I'm very excited about flipping the House. And in California, we're doing really well, as you can see. So, yeah, excited about that.
And we just got news in that Dianne Feinstein is about 53% and De Leon is about 47%. How are you? Yeah. What are your thoughts about this?
Look, I think it's great. I think it sends a message. I know that folks are declaring you're the winner. The night's still young. We're not done yet. You just never know. But it's definitely sending a message that, we're ready for some change, and we'll see what the night brings. Yeah.
Perfect. And where do you think this party is heading? How do you feel about the energy at this party? Are there any thoughts moving forward from tonight?
I think the Democratic Party is strong. I think we're ready for victory in 2 years. This is just the start of that. We saw a number of people at the polls today who were excited. They were there for hours because they want to cast a vote, and we're going to make some real change coming up.
So what do you think the implications are with Democrats winning the House for President Trump? Do you think there will be impeachment papers introduced?
I think there will be a number of things introduced. I think that it'll allow folks to be at the head of committees like Maxine Waters and others. Nancy Pelosi will be back at the helm, and it's going to hold up Trump from trying to do what he's been trying to do, take hostage of our country.
And what are your thoughts on the state level? Gavin Newsom recently was announced that he had won the California governorship. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, we're excited. We're looking forward to Gavin Newsom. I think he's a positive light of new energy to California. He's been saying he wants to work with Southern California. That's why he's here tonight, and so we're looking forward to working with him as well. Yeah,
okay.
Cool.
Well, thank you
you
so
guys.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So now I'd like to bring some more attention about the party that's going on around us. As soon as we got here, the party was a bit shallow, a bit calm. But now as the election is picking up the pace and the results are coming in, excitement is building, anticipation is building. Mr. De Leon will be actually on the stage that is right there just in front of us, giving a speech. There are reporters, there are politicians flooding the area. It's quite exciting. What are your thoughts on the vibe here? How do you feel about it?
I think the energy is very strong. As you just saw from that interview, he was very excited about the future of the Democratic Party, that they've taken back the House. He didn't seem to think that it was that much of a problem, that Republicans had actually gained seats in the Senate. And he thinks there is a hopeful future for Democrats, both in California and in the nation as a whole, which I think is a big statement on the election tonight. We will see what the voter turnout is. It should be very high, especially among youth voters. But yes, the party here, the energy, it's tangible. You can feel it. Democrats are excited.
Perfect. And as we said before, we're going to be keeping you live, updated feed throughout the night. We'll keep you posted. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Evan and Luke. And just coming in from multiple sources, Trump called Nancy Pelosi to congratulate her on a Democratic majority in the House. So she will become the next Speaker of the House if the Democrats do keep that House.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump is well known for his very emotional rhetoric, but in this case, he is
congratulating.
being poised, congratulating the other side. Part of that might be because the Republicans still have the Senate, so he's sort of in control a little bit still there. But that's an interesting fact about
and Democrats
the
will
conversation that's going on in the White House and over in D.C. as all of this is going down as well.
Yeah, and I guess going into more Democratic spheres, Nancy Pelosi is a representative from California. So when Trump says, all these Democrats, she's really pointing at California, saying as a liberal state, really against his policies as well.
Right.
And so speaking of Democratic candidates, we have Trevor Sahaki at the Gavin Newsom watch party right now in downtown LA. Trevor, what's the buzz over there?
Good evening, guys. I'm live here in downtown LA at the Gavin Newsom watch party, where just behind me, if you can't tell and if you can't hear, actor and rapper Common is performing. He's been talking about equality, gender equality, race equality, every type of equality in California, and how he believes that Gavin, as governor, can make California overall a better place. And let me tell you guys, the mood here is fantastic. Everyone is loving it. Everyone's got their hands up. The drinks are free-flowing. The raps are free-flowing. Everything is just happy here. It is an amazing, amazing vibe, and it is packed. Everyone's got their hands in the air, and they are supporting this race. Now, I've been keeping track of everything coming in, and so far, NBC News, CBS News, MSNBC, ABC have all projected Gavin as being the governor. In fact, just a few minutes ago, the LA Times actually said that he was the governor. They called the race. So, with Newsom as governor, he's outspent Cox, and he's going to focus on the future. We're talking 100% renewable energy, protecting the public lands, investing in the first 2 years of life, like universal preschool, and also rewarding cities that provide more affordable housing. Again, all this stuff that he believes will make California a better place, and most of the people behind me, and of course, rapper Common as well, believe will make California and therefore America a better place as well. Again, reporting live from downtown LA at Gavin Newsom's watch party, I'm Trevor Sahaki for Annenberg Media. Back to you guys in the studio.
We're sorry about that. Nikki's mic is having some technical difficulties. We'll get back to her when we fix that up.
Yeah, more for those social updates later.
Mhm.
But you know, coming out of that Newsom watch party, we see a lot
very
of
exciting.
uplifting music from Common and inspirational atmosphere all around. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
For their candidate.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess what does that say, you know, about the scope of the next 2 years? You know, having a Democratic control and having, you know, that, I guess, inspiration to see that Democrats can be against Trump in the next 2 years. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Newsom and other Democrats that are winning big tonight, there are definitely going to be some people that we're going to have to keep our eye on in the next couple of years for where they might land in 2020.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
And actually, we are going to go back to that excitement right now.
Okay, let's do it.
In downtown LA at the Newsom watch party. So yeah, Trevor and Maddie will be on the scene right there. Yeah. And a little technical difficulties over there, but that's okay. Still, the excitement is rolling around in downtown LA.
We can see it's like basically a big concert out
no,
there.
it is. Yeah, definitely. With that uplifting music and that, yeah.
Right.
And so yeah, that's right.
We're going to check in now with our reporter out in Norwalk at the registrar's office, Taylor Elliott. What's new there? What's going on?
Got it.
I know it's a lot, but.
Okay. Thanks, guys. And we're back here. And I'm with Rocky, who is an employee here at the registrar's office. And, you know, the polls closed at 8. And so now all the votes are being brought here to be counted and tabulated. So, Rocky, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that process and what exactly goes down here.
Well, we basically count the ballots. We form a line here with all the public. They come in. We have ballot booths where you can come and drive by and bring your ballots. And we do that all day. We'll be here till 2 a.m. doing that.
Okay. And then so I know that a lot of like the sheriffs and the cars, they're going to be driving up here and dropping the bags off. So once the sealed bags leave the car, what's next?
Once the sealed bags leave the car, we'll come up to this table here. We'll distract the ballot. We'll open the bag and then we'll take it upstairs where they'll distract the red box, take it out, and then they'll take it to the 3rd floor where they'll open it, check the ballot, put it in, and count it.
Okay, and then are all the votes calculated in this building or are they sent out to other areas?
This building will do a lot of the calculations, most of it here. Some other places also count as well. But this is the main building that does the counting, LA County.
And then I know California has the new system with the mail-in ballots where, you know,
Correct.
there still can be counted a day or two after the election.
Correct.
So how does that exactly work?
Well, we have like at least 2 days to count all the ballots. You have millions of ballots, so it'll take us at least 2 to 3 days to continue to count. So that's how it works.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking us through this a little bit.
No problem.
And yeah, have a good rest of your night.
You too.
Thank you.
You guys have a good one.
And yeah, so like he said, ballots are going to keep coming in here for the rest of the night. Right now, it's only a little bit after 9, but like he said, they're going to be here into the wee hours of the night. Now, we still haven't seen too many of the helicopters coming in, but we did talk to a couple of sheriffs earlier that said they should be starting to come in at any moment. When we have more with that, we'll keep you guys updated. But for now, I'm Taylor Elliott, and back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much. We are ready for Nikki now for the social media update. Nikki? Oh, it looks like she's still having some mic issues, so we're going to come back to her. We definitely want to get that social update when we're ready for it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of social media reaction towards, you know, the results that are coming in right now, you know, for the Democratic Party gaining those seats in the House.
Right.
How do you think that'll actually, you know, with social media engagement, how do you think that's been affecting, you know, voting and all that?
Definitely. I think that I voted hashtag and things like that have totally just surged today, especially.
Yeah. And we actually do have a Nikki Walker right now with Matthew Levesque to talk about that social media update.
Thank you, JP Gabby. Well, earlier we looked a lot about emotions, but now let's look at what people are actually talking about, and more particularly, who they are talking about. If you'll see here, our top mention is at Real Donald Trump, and this is about 300,000 plus mentions. What's important to note here is that this this actually leads far above different news outlets. So you'll see AP here as well as Fox News down below. There's also a few mentions of potential candidates, but Real Donald Trump, President Trump, is actually leading the game. So, Professor Levesque, what do you think this means here? Why are we seeing our president far above our news outlets?
Well, what we're seeing, especially when we compare this to 2014, is this election, the unbelievable volume. We're now getting close to 1.4 million tweets for today versus that 337,000 in the previous midterm on it. What we're seeing is that this election appears to be really all about Donald Trump, both his policies, what's going on, can the Democrats take, can the Republicans hold? So a lot of this conversation is revolving around the president. Whereas in the previous midterm, we saw very little conversation. It was all reporting on it. It was the fact that the Republicans took the Senate. We saw about, was it 600 mentions of President Obama at that time versus this tremendously high volume of this one. So it really does contribute why that polarization of President Trump driving people to participate, have conversations, and be part of this in 2018.
And it's important to note that although the 600, we are seeing a lot more mentions this time around. Also looking at our top tweets here, we have Ellen DeGeneres as our top tweet with retweet if you voted. Now this is interesting because if we look at 2014, there were, again, more news outlets were the top tweets. Again, those were results from the entire day. Right now, it is only about 9 o'clock. So this year, what do you make of this being our top tweet by Ellen DeGeneres?
Well, it plays into what we saw earlier when we were seeing all that joy and all that, the Twitter being used to encourage people to get out and vote, to participate on it. Ellen, with her very large social network following, participates in this and gets retweeted more than anybody in the United States about the election. More than President Trump, more than any other elected officials, more than our news outlets. It'll be interesting to see if that holds up throughout the evening when more results come in and California comes in and people start talking about the news outlets and news reporting on it. But that certainly is unusual to see something like that on a day like today.
And would you say that that's kind of a characteristic of 2018, kind of people on social media looking towards influencers, their entertainers, more than maybe a news outlet sometimes?
Well, we definitely see the news outlets being a very important factor in social media, especially on Twitter when they're real-time reporting and people using their posts to amplify them, retweet them, and share news that they either are happy with or unhappy with, depending on their point of view. Ellen has been pretty active on social media for a variety of fun causes. Her account is very active, so I'm not surprised. It's just unusual that it's maintaining its stature on it. Usually we see a President Trump tweet or somebody else, news outlet or somebody like that making it the top of Twitter.
Great, thank you so much. We'll be keeping you updated if there's any new information happening on Twitter, but for now, back to you guys.
For those of you just joining us, that was Nikki Walker and Matthew Levesque with a social media update, looking at the top mentions on Twitter tonight as part of our 2018 election coverage here at Annenberg Media. We're going to take it now to a new live reporter, Nathan Hyun, at the Cox party, where Cox is supposed to be on stage and speak to the crowd there in San Diego. Nathan?
Thanks, guys. This is Nathan Hyun here in San Diego at the John Cox watch party. Now, even though Gavin Newsom was declared the winner, there's still a lot of people here with a lot of confidence. Just recently, much of the attention has switched from Cox to more of the local races. A local senator and people from the school board have come to speak about what they think, how they can carry out John Cox's views. As a matter of fact, they're looking forward to 2020, 2022. They know that this is not the end of it. And right here, there are different results coming in, different votes for different propositions, like judges and just from different districts. They really want to see these Republican candidates win. and there's still a lot of people coming in. There's a lot of enthusiasm. Literally, when there's a Democrat candidate speaking on TV, there's a lot of groans. But when a Republican comes on, this whole place goes into a big roar. Now, even though Gavin Newsom won, the night is not the end of it. We just learned that John Cox is actually going to come speak here shortly. So we'll be ready for that. This is Nathan Hyun here at San Diego. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Yeah, and moments later, we will see John Cox actually conceding to Democratic candidate Gavin Newsom. For
Right, it'd
governor
be interesting
of
to see what he has to say after all of this. After
That's right.
a long road of campaigning, I'm sure it's very upsetting to feel that defeat. But an important time to hear some of the words that he's going to say.
Absolutely. And, you know, coming in from San Diego, now we're going to Orange County in Irvine, California. We have reporter Colin Taylor at the Katie Porter watch party. Colin, what do we have?
Well, guys, as you can see behind me, there's still plenty of people excited about this race. Whenever someone in blue wins, there's just a huge uproar of cheering. And something that's blown me away this election cycle has been just the range of ages here. You have people that are, of course, little kids, and then you got all the way up until their 80s, and maybe upwards. I don't know. I'm not going to make any bold assumptions here. But anyway, here with me is my guest, Austin. He is a canvasser for Katie's campaign. Anyway, Austin, how you doing today? Now, with all the movements to try and get millennials to vote more, is there anything you've changed?
Well, in terms of change, like one of the things that we've done as canvassers is just go out, try and convince voters to try and vote for Katie. I mean, we can't always do that, but what we can try and do is try and convince them, like maybe try and find like a specific issue that they're interested in, maybe like whether it's gun safety or education or like Medicare. That's a big one right now. I mean, you'll notice that a lot of legislators are trying to hammer that home today, and that's one of the ones that Katie was trying to work on.
So you really try and look for specific issues for people to latch on to so they can really own their politics, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And one of the things that you got to do as a canvasser is you got to try and make sure that you are connecting with them. Because if there's no connection there with the voter, then there's kind of a disconnect between the voter and the campaign itself. So you got to make sure you make that connection, you reach that hand out, and you give them the biggest smile you can.
Of course. Now, this is going to get a little personal, but as far as Katie's concerned, as far as the whole election is concerned, what do you think you feel is most important to you this election cycle?
For me personally, so I'm an educator by trade. Like I studied to get a social science credential. I've been working as a teacher, both substitute and full-time over the years. Education is where my heart lies. So trying to make sure that we put the right resources into education, that's what I feel most about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good one, all right?
Thanks, Colin.
Anyway, this has been Colin Taylor. Back to you guys at the studio.
Thank you so much, Colin. Yeah, and looking at Katie Porter's polling results right now from the New York Times, Katie Porter, for the Democratic Party, she is at 47.3%, while her other candidate, Mimi Walters, Republican candidate, is at 52.7%. So definitely a close race there happening in Orange County.
And Mimi Walters, she's actually the only California female Republican in the House right now. So if she doesn't end up winning, another one of the Republican women candidates is going to have to win in the House if they want any of that female representation there. So that'll be interesting. For now, she's in the lead, like you said.
Or she's actually not in the lead.
Oh, she's no, Walters is.
Mimi Walters is.
Right, correct. So yeah, but then we'll come back to the Katie Porter party.
That's right.
And after maybe these numbers shift a little bit, or once we get a little closer to finding out.
That's right.
For now, we're going to take it back to Newsom and find out what's happening at that watch party. That was the exciting one with our reporter Madeline Audley. Let's see what's going down right here in downtown LA. Maddie?
Thanks so much, guys. I am here in downtown Los Angeles live at the Gavin Newsom campaign headquarters. Excitement behind me has been building all night long. You can still see hundreds of people. Rapper Common just finished performing, and now all these people behind me are anticipating the moment Gavin Newsom will take the stage to speak. It could be any minute now. It was right around 9 o'clock that the Associated Press officially called this race, and guess what? Gavin Newsom will be the next governor in the state of California. He clinched 56% of the votes in the state. Republican John Cox taking 44%. Again, he's expected to speak in about 10 to 15 minutes. But before he does, I just want to take a look at that margin of victory. Let's focus in again, 56% to 44%. If we compare that to the last two gubernatorial races that our state has seen, it's a little bit tighter. In 2014, Jerry Brown won 60% to 40%. Back in 2010, Brown also won 54% to 41%. And I think one of the reasons that this race could be so tight is the other ballot measures we're seeing this election. Proposition 6, which would repeal the gas tax, was one of the most contested races in the state, which I believe got Republicans out into the polls, making this a tight race. Again, right now, we're just standing by, waiting for Newsom to take the stage with his wife. We're told it would be about 9:45. We're going to have live updates for you as that continues. Again, Madeline Audley standing live in downtown LA. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Again, all that excitement in that room right now.
Right, can't wait to hear from him as well.
That's right, yeah. And still staying local here in downtown LA, we have Luke Scorziel. He is at the Democratic watch party over there, seeing what's happening. Yeah, Luke, what do we have?
Hi, we're here at the Los Angeles County Democratic Watch Party. Behind me, as you can see, there are many Kevin De Leon supporters who has actually just been declared to have lost the senatorial race to Dianne Feinstein, but that is not keeping their hopes down. As we can see, every few minutes they give loud cheers. They're very enthusiastic about the candidate. Regardless of whether or not he won the race, he still has their support. As you can see right now, look, very energetic, a lot of support. The energy at this party is tangible. You can feel the excitement around the Democratic Party, even though this candidate lost. Dianne Feinstein still has control. There they go again. They've still gained the House. They've lost seats in the Senate. The Republicans have gained. But as we can hear with the music, the people, there's smiles all around. Very excited. A lot going on. With that, sending it back to the studio, I'm Luke Scorziel from the Los Angeles County Democratic Watch Party.
Thanks so much, Luke. Very exciting.
Yeah.
We're going to throw it now back to San Diego at the Cox Watch Party, where he is taking the podium to give a few words.
Yeah.
Victoria, and all the people, and Sarah Lee, thank you for adding your efforts to this as well. And of course, the guy that drove me around, one of the Davids, David Morgan, as well as David Cushman, our grassroots director. So thank you all. Hope I included everybody in that. You know, any effort has to have a great team. Every effort has to have people that believe in you. And I hope that each and every one of you believes in the mission that we made this campaign about. And if there's anything that we did, I consider myself very proud that we highlighted the incredible struggle that the people of this state have had for years under the people that are running this state. We identified the needs of these people, the fact that they can't afford housing, they can't afford gasoline, they can't afford the basics of life. And let me tell you, this Republican Party will be back in this state. And our path to success is going to be based upon delivering the quality of life that people need so desperately. You know, I look around the country. Larry Hogan, by the way, was reelected by 15 points in Maryland today. And Larry Hogan is the governor of Maryland. Maryland has a Republican registration that's lower than ours. Now, the good news in Maryland for Larry is that he didn't need anywhere near as much money. It's a much smaller state than California. So that's the challenge in California. That's the challenge in gathering the resources to get the message out that the Republican Party stands for improving the quality of life for hardworking Californians. And let me tell you what this party also has to stand for. It has to stand for changing our political system. We have to, the one thing that I'm really proud of is that we took the high road in this campaign. We ran a campaign based upon issues and not personal attacks. I tell you what, I lament the loss of civility that we have had and we have seen in politics. And if I have anything to say about it, we're going to bring honor and civility back into our politics. But make no mistake about it, what we also need to do is we need to address the elephant in the room, and it really is an elephant, and that is the corrupting influence of special interest money. The big businesses and the big labor unions and the lobbyist class in Sacramento has had their way. They have run this state down. And I hope the lieutenant governor has a success, but you know what? He's not going to have that much success unless he deals with the influence peddlers and the people that would bend policy for their own profits. We need urgent reforms. The status quo is the status quo because somebody likes it that way and somebody's making money from it, and they're using that money to buy our political leadership, and that was demonstrated in this race. The wall-to-wall TV ads that Gavin Newsom ran were paid for by somebody, and those people want something from him, and unfortunately maybe they'll get it. But you know, the people are going to wise up to this. They know that this system is broken and it's got to get fixed, and it's got to be done soon in order for this state to be the success that it should be. Thank you all for your steadfastness and for your love and your support. And I'm not going anywhere. I love this state and I'm going to stay involved. Thank you so much for all of your good thoughts. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as you can see there, John Cox just gave his concession speech to Gavin Newsom for being candidate of governor of California.
Right. Disappointing for him and the Republican Party, but there was absolutely so much just encouragement from him saying, you know, we're not over here. This is not done. We're going to keep working hard here in California.
And even said that calling for the Republican Party to be back in the near future.
Right, right.
Yeah, to see either be governorship or even in the House of the Senate.
Right.
Yeah, and now we'll be going to our California correspondent here. Albert Chin has more on the California congressional races, just as the governorship race just wrapped up here in California. So, Albert, what do we have?
Thanks, Gabby and JP. Well, with the votes coming in for California, preliminary projections are being made. We can see here that 21 congressional races have already been called. 22 races have now been called, and 2 for the Republicans. Here, we're going to go into some hotly contested races and see what the votes are coming in for. For District 25, we can see Katie Hill going up against Steve Knight. The race is very tight, 50% against 50%. Next up, we have District 39, which goes for Young Kim against Gil Cisneros. And here, the vote is coming in at about, 55% for Kim and 45% for Cisneros. Next up, we have District 45, which is Katie Porter against Mimi Walters. The vote here is about 48% for Porter and 52% for Walters. And next up after that, we have District 48, which has Dana Rohrabacher against Harley Ruda. Again, a very, very tight race, 50% against 50%. Next up, we have District 49, which has Diane Harkey against Mike Levin. Here we can see Levin in the lead with 53%, while Harkey has 44. Here in California, District 50, we have Amar Campanajjar against Duncan Hunter. Duncan has a considerable lead with 54% of the vote against Amar Campanajjar's 46. Well, as the results continue to come in, we'll keep you updated. Back to you, JP and Gabby.
Thanks so much, Albert. We're going to check back in California as some of those results come in.
That's right.
We're going to throw it now to another new live reporter, Fiona Pestana in Norwalk. Fiona, what new is happening out there?
Oh, I had some already. Thank you, though.
Hello, everybody. I'm Fiona Pestana. And again, here we are at the Norwalk Registrar's Office, where people have been lining up all day to vote. Right here with me, we have a voter who just registered to vote named Candace. Hello. How has waiting in line been for you today?
It's been really long, to be honest. I was not expecting that there were this many other people who last minute registered, so I thought it was going to be in and out, and it hasn't exactly been that.
What keeps you going? Why do you keep waiting?
I'm really a political person, and I've heard that this is the largest record turnout for a midterm election in history, so I'm not about to miss it, and if that means I stand in line for 3 hours, then I stand in line for 3 hours.
That's fantastic. And so when did you get here? How long have you been standing in line?
I got here at 7, so I'm not sure what time it is right now, but I've been in here since 7.
And what are you hoping to come from this year's midterm elections?
I'm really hoping for Prop 1 and 2 to get approved. I work with the homeless, and those are major initiatives for homeless services, so I'm really hoping that those will get passed.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us today, and I hope that the voting experience is everything that you want it to be. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. You too. All right, so you heard it here from a voter who just registered today. Luckily, California makes it so that anybody can register to vote the day of the voting elections. So we'll be keeping updated with the results of the elections. We're going to bring it back to the studio. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Yeah, and looking at those voters still in line, still registering, even though the polls have closed. In California, you can still on the same day vote, register to vote, and also vote.
Right,
as well. Yeah.
right. They want to make sure that there's no restrictions for people to vote. They want to give as many opportunities to do so. Even last minute people, I know I'm a last minute person, so I appreciate those rules. Very exciting for people like that who are really passionate and are going to do whatever it takes to get their voice heard this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And as looking at California, I mean, we touched upon it a little bit, but even more on the propositions. We have a lot, going into, bonds, daylight savings, or even, in the medical field as well. We have Prop 8,
right,
and we have funding for children's hospitals. So there's definitely a large array that California has to vote on.
Right.
One midterm election.
Yeah, as Austin was talking about earlier, some of those props that are more relevant to USC students, those are the ones they cared about. This person that Fiona was talking to, she said she works with the homeless, so those are the props that she was most interested in getting her vote out in.
Definitely a local issue here.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Very interesting.
Yeah, and we do have a package on right now. We have Katie Hill. She's running against a 3-time Republican incumbent. But if this millennial congressional candidate wins in her district, it could have a huge impact. Annenberg media reporter Kristen Vartan tells us more about that.
We all come together for one express purpose, and that is for equality and equity for everyone. For everyone.
Women are ready to amplify their voices through their votes this midterm election.
Women are starting to see where we were 20 years ago. Are we better off? Unfortunately, we're not. So we want a better future for the young women that are out there. And unless we exercise our right to vote, but also think about political office for ourselves, then we can continue that change.
Katie Hill did more than just think about running for political office.
This is a moment where we're taking the next step towards equality, and it's hard. It's going to be a battle, but we have to do it.
Hill is one of 39 women in California who won her primary race for Congress. Democrats are hoping this 30-year-old will flip her district from red to blue.
My job now is not just to represent my district, but to represent women across the nation and frankly even across the world who need to have a voice, and it's more important now than it ever has been.
Hill especially wants to give a voice to women who have faced sexual assault. The Kavanaugh hearing result lit a particular fire under the candidate.
We're in this together, and that this isn't easy, and I wanted to do this because of what I experienced as a survivor myself.
Congressional candidate Katie Hill hopes to continue the discussion for survivors if she is elected.
This is the beginning of a fight. It's not the end, and we have to keep going. And what does that look like? And how, when we do get more women in power, hopefully starting next year, when we have a higher number of women in Congress than we've had in a long time, than we've ever had, that we can start making real progress on this issue, and that we can continue and continue and continue until we actually get to parity and the equality we deserve.
And advocates believe this parity and equality is incomplete without a woman's touch.
Women see the world a little different, and it's about social equity.
It has been a century since women have obtained the right to vote. And this election, their votes could put them one step closer to better representation in Congress. For Annenberg Media, I'm Kristen Vartan.
Some great comments there from Katie Hill about women empowerment.
That's right.
Some other stats about women in this election: over 250 women were candidates tonight.
Yeah, definitely a record number.
A record, yes. ABC News is reporting now that 87 women have already won in the House tonight. We don't know about Katie yet because those California ballots are still coming in.
That's right.
We'll be looking for that one. And we do know California to already be a policy trendsetter for women. It was the first state to have both Senate seats be women in 1993. Dianne Feinstein just won her seat again, so she'll be there. And there's just been more women on women races. There's one in Arizona for the Senate seat, so a woman is going to win there. Whichever party wins, it's going to be a woman. So I think on top of breaking those records of just women getting their foot in the door, trying to be in the race, be those candidates, people that are actually going to be in those seats in these high political positions are going to be breaking records as well.
Right. Actually representing them as well
right.
in their districts or wherever they be.
Right. Very interesting. Very exciting for a politically motivated woman in America. We're going to toss it now to Albert for an update on the California props. Albert?
Thanks, Gabby. Well, with the votes continuing to come in for the propositions, let's take a look at what they signify. For Prop 1, which issues $4 billion in bonds for housing programs, we see 52% on yes and 48% on no. For Prop 2, we have a prop on homeless housing, and that is a staggering win with 59% for yes and 41% for no. Let's go to Prop 3, which issues $8.8 billion in bonds for water-related infrastructure. Here we see a huge loss with 53% for no and 4% for yes. For Prop 4, which issues $1.4 billion in bonds for children's hospitals, we see a win with 58% for yes and 42% for no. For Prop 5, which is regarding property tax transfers, we see 44% for yes and 56% for no. Prop 6, regarding the gas tax repeal, we see 47% for yes and 53% for no. For Prop 7, regarding the daylight savings time, we see 62% for yes and 38% for no. For Prop 8, regarding dialysis center regulations, we see 38% for yes and 62% for no. And for Prop 10, we see 35% for yes and 65% for no. This is regarding rent control. For Prop 11, regarding ambulance employee rates, we see 63% for yes and 37% for no. And finally, for Prop 12, which is regarding animal confinement, we have 59% for yes and 41% for no. For most of these props, we still only have 25 of presence reporting in, so as votes continue to come in, we'll keep you updated. Back to you, JP and Gabby.
All right, thanks so much, Albert, for that update on the California props. And we saw that California Prop 10 was checkmarked with 65% with a no as well. So I guess what does that mean for rent control here in Los Angeles?
Right, that means it's going to be restricted. A vote yes on Prop 10 meant they were going to be able to expand rent control. So pretty much lawmakers were going to be able to do whatever they wanted with rent control. So now we're looking at keeping it the way that it has been already.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely a big local issue here in Los Angeles, in downtown Los Angeles, or in the South LA area, definitely.
Right, I know that renters were the ones more opposed to Prop 10. because they wanted to be able to sort of have those restrictions. But the renters, or landlords, I should say, but people renting out, they wanted to sort of have more of those restrictions, so then people can't, raise prices after they've moved out, and different things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see in the upcoming years about all that. Yeah, and so we have actually Evan Foster at the downtown LA watch party for the Democratic Party. Evan, what's happening over there?
Right, we're back to you live here from the midterm viewing party here with Mr. What was your name again?
Lester Aponte.
Lester Aponte. And what brings you here to the midterm viewing party?
Well, I'm the president of the Stonewall Democratic Club and a delegate to the state convention. I've been a Democrat for most of my life, and we worked really, really hard this year to bring the victory home, to turn Congress blue, and to win all the important races here in California, so we can make a real difference for all Americans.
So we've just been given word that Democrats have taken the House by a slim margin. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a great day for America. I mean, we've been living in a one-party state the last 2 years. Whatever Trump says goes. Finally, we have some checks and balances, and we have at least one branch of government that is going to stand up for all the people of America, not just the millionaires.
And it seems we've heard that Democrats have won by a slim margin in the House. What do you think congressmen in the House can do about this in terms of overcoming bills, for example, proposed by Trump, or anything in that regard? What do you think about this?
Well, I hope that we learn the spirit of compromise that the founders expected us all to work towards, that historically Americans actually knew how to do. I hope that Democrats will push forward an agenda that is far more progressive, and then we'll actually get Republicans to work together with us on making America truly great.
And tell me about your role here at the midterm party here today. What is your affiliation? How do you feel about the energy here? How does it?
Well, I think people had really high expectations. They're exhausted because we've worked harder than we ever have, canvassing, walking precincts, making calls. People were calling me within an hour of the polls closing, still asking me if I had voted for the candidates that they were supporting. So people were working. Even after 8 p.m., there were still people working the polls and making sure that all the votes were out. So we're tired, but we're happy. We're happy that we finally got some results, that we finally are able to stop the Trump agenda and actually work towards a better America for all of us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Good night. Back to you in the studio. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Evan. Good to hear from that person.
Yeah, and later, going into it, we'll go back to the John Cox Party. But looking at the Democratic Party, and what we see coming into 2020, I know we do have the results that kind of came in and said that we do have. Democrats do have the House of Representatives. I guess looking at what Trump thinks and seeing, of course, he does have the Senate, but what do you think the House of Representatives will, get by Trump to do?
Right. I think it's overall going to make his job a lot harder. He could be looking at some of those early stages of impeachment proceedings. I know the Democrats said if they took the House, they were going to start investigations right away and things like that. Whereas if it was a Republican House, those things would sort of be out of question. So he does have a few more things to worry about, but he's seemed to handle himself well in his first 2 years as president, as just sort of navigating everything. So it's going to be a challenge, but I don't think it's going to stop him or the Republicans in the Senate or just the Trump supporters in general.
Right, absolutely. They're going to have to put up a fight.
Right. And now we're going to go to the Cox Party over in San Diego. We have reporters Angel and Keith live there now.
Thanks so much, Gabby and JP. We are live here from the Cox Watch Party in San Diego. Keith DeMolder, Angel Viscara. Angel, a wild night, unfortunately for Cox supporters. Gavin Newsom, the new governor here in California. Overall, just give me some of your final thoughts here from San Diego.
It was a really interesting dynamic tonight, folks. I mean, you come into tonight, a lot of the Republicans here very optimistic that they could get California to go red for the first time in a very, very long time. But it felt like once the Republicans fell out of the race for the governor's chair, they kind of shifted their victories to the smaller victories, the congressional victories here in San Diego County. Just very interesting how the focus kind of shifted away from the governor race once they found out they weren't going to win there.
We talked about in Armada earlier, maybe there was going to be a Republican resurgence here in California. Unfortunately for John Cox and some of his Republican candidates, the ship has sailed. And our ship is going to sail here from the Grant Hotel here in San Diego. For Angel Viscara, I'm Keith DeMolder saying so long. Let's send it back to the studio.
Good night, folks.
Thanks so much, guys. Great coverage there tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, for John Cox. Mm-hmm.
And as we see that Newsom got the California governorship, and we're looking at other places people are winning those governorships as well. These positions are going to be especially important come 2020 when the redistricting happens. And so where we're seeing these parties lean is going to be especially important for that. And then in turn, that redistricting is going to affect the elections after that for seats in Congress and things like that. So it's going to be really interesting.
Right, absolutely. Definitely for the 2020 election when it comes to that. When all the representatives see their constituents vote against
so
whatever they see.
Results happening tonight are going to be affecting things in 2 years and 4 years and beyond as well.
Yeah, and so still staying in California, we have at the Irvine Watch Party for Katie Porter, we have Charlotte Scott and Colin Taylor at the live event there. We have both of them. What do we have, guys?
So yeah,
We are here at the Katie Porter Watch Party still. It is packed behind us, and there are a lot of Katie Porter supporters here. A lot of them are still sporting their orange and blue shirts and hats, and they're all really excited to be here. One of the biggest things we've seen is every time a Democrat takes the House, there's a lot of cheering on the inside. What do you think, Colin?
These people are definitely very passionate about what position they want here. It's very clear that they want Katie Porter in Congress right now.
They wholeheartedly believe in her.
Oh yeah, I mean, from the people we talked to earlier, she's in complete opposition with what they want out of Mimi Walters, and it's very clear through that. But it's definitely been a crazy experience, given just how passionate and how many people are passionate about this position.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people who have also worked on her campaign for a long time and are very, very confident in her ability. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'm Charlotte Scott.
And I'm Colin Taylor. Back to you guys at the studio.
Thank you so much, Colin and Charlotte. Yeah, looking at the polls and the results coming in for Mimi Walters and Katie Porter. Katie Porter is still behind 47.7%, and Mimi Walters is 52.3%. So definitely still a close race, as we can see there.
Right, close. That's one we're going to have to be keeping an eye at for sure.
Yeah, but definitely those supporters there at the watch party are still fired up. They're still rambling over there. Yeah.
Right.
And so, yeah, we will be going to Gavin Newsom's watch party shortly, but still staying at, and actually we are going to be
We're ready.
having that, yeah.
Gavin Newsom, he's about to speak at that watch party. His wife is introducing him right now. We'll toss it to our reporters there, Maddie and Trevor.
And we have seen his courage continue to shine throughout his campaign, as time and time again, he has rallied against division and hate, and stood up for love and inclusion, fiercely defending our California values and all that binds us together. So, obviously, I am very proud to call Gavin Newsom my partner in life, and I truly believe that Gavin is the leader that we need in California now more than ever. But I also believe in all of you and what all of us can do together. So thank you. Thank you for believing in Gavin and standing by his side. Thank you for being a part of our extended family. Todos somos una familia y nadie puede separarnos de nuestra humanidad en común. porque estamos en esto juntos. We are in this together, and together we will rise. And we will help Californians achieve all that is possible in life, because no matter the color of your skin, no matter your gender, no matter who you love or who you pray to, and no matter the circumstances of your birth or your life, you are all welcome in our California family. Nuestra familia de California. So without further ado, please welcome my husband, Father.
We want to apologize for some technical difficulties there. We want to get Gavin in some of his speech,
Right.
So we'll try to come back to that as soon as it finishes up. But some of those words from his wife, just talking about the California family, people were definitely excited to hear that and feel the cheers after a few things that she was saying.
Yeah, and definitely choosing to speak in Spanish, you know, fueling that Hispanic Latino vote.
Right.
And basically, a lot of the constituents here in California are Spanish speakers and have that in their background. And definitely, you know, honing in on those voters and honing into their beliefs and honing into what they want in a life in California as well. Yeah.
Right. Right. Super interesting.
That's right, yeah. And I guess, you know, as he comes up and sees, not concedes, but as he accepts the gubernatorial race and him being governor, it's definitely another push for Democrats in California as a lead, just coming after Jerry Brown and what he did for California.
Right, right. I think we have Gavin Newsom speaking right now. We're going to toss to him.
Yeah.
Privilege of serving as your next governor. This victory is really your victory because of you. The future belongs to California. You know, it's been a tough 2 years, but tonight, America's biggest state is making the biggest statement in America. Facts, for trust, and now is the time for truth. Now is time for leaders to lead. And to those agents of anger determined to divide us instead of unite us, it's time to pack it up and for you to pack it in. This immigration reform is California's moment. And to those who wonder whether polarization is permanent, who fake today's big dreams are tomorrow's broken promises, who question whether a 40 million person melting pot of different faiths, different families and futures can live and prosper together, California is your answer. The sun is rising in the west, and the arc of history is bending in our direction. Because this is not just a state of resistance, California is a state of results. California is America's coming attraction, a rocket-fueled engine of human industry and innovation, the nation's greatest job creator, and the fifth largest economy in the world. The true genius of California isn't the value we work for, it's the values we fight for. This is a state where we don't criminalize diversity, we celebrate diversity. Protect the most vulnerable. We don't put property laws ahead of clean air. We don't put property laws ahead of clean water and clean coastlines. We don't regulate a woman's body more than we regulate assault weapons. We don't discriminate and we don't demoralize. We don't separate families and we don't lock kids in cages. dream has always been and always will be too big to fail and too powerful to bully. The California dream, it's not binary. Every day we show how human endeavor can be both lucrative and inclusive. They aren't mutually exclusive. We don't just want success in the right hands, we want it in everybody's hands. But let's be honest, there's no doubt about this, the dream is still too distant for too many. We're a land of plenty, but we are far from perfect. Too many Californians are being priced out of housing, healthcare, and higher education. Too many workers are feeling the ever-tightening squeeze of automation and wage stagnation. Too many children are growing up in poverty and starting school from behind. In many ways, in many places, we are simultaneously the richest and the poorest state. But after traveling California from region to region in a bus fueled by perpetual optimism, I'm more convinced than ever there's no problem in California that isn't somehow, somewhere, being solved by a Californian. We're the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy. California is by birth. California is by choice. Every generation, overcoming every conceivable border and bias, all part of the same journey to ascend and succeed together. Over our own journey, in the course of this campaign, I've seen it in the hopeful faces of many. I've heard it in their indelible personal stories. I've seen it in the donut store owner in Garden Grove beaming with pride because his daughter was the first in their family to attend college. I've seen it in Miss Jackie, the union home care worker in Lancaster, who dedicates her life to helping other human beings live their final days in dignity. I've seen it in Greg, a ruined homeless veteran just a few weeks back, after years and years of struggle with addiction, has found a new path thanks to treatment and job training. And I've seen it in the bravery of Elizabeth, an 8-year-old girl in Fresno, who raised her hand at my town hall and asked not about herself, but what she can do to protect her friends in the case of a school shooting. It's about advancing all Californians on their journey by making this a place of equality, making California a place of opportunity, safety, and affordability for everyone. We can make their dream real, but only if we have the courage of our convictions, the courage to dream bigger and demand more, the courage to be a state of results and a state of refuge. And I've learned from Californians of every walk of life, because I know that starting tomorrow, the hard work truly begins. But tonight, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. I'm humbled to accept this awesome responsibility, because I know that we can accomplish working together, transforming the politically impossible into the practically inevitable. There are so many stars, so many California stars in this room tonight. Too many to name, too many to enumerate. I want to take a moment of personal privilege and mention just a few who shine brightest for me when I need it the most. Starting with my wife. Every day in a world where children can live free of stereotype and social inequality, while being the incredible mother of our 4 wonderful children. All my friends and family have been there.
All right.
As Gavin Newsom wraps up, we are also going to wrap up our live coverage of the 2018 midterm elections. Thank you so much for tuning in to us on Facebook Live. You can find updates for all the election coverage that's coming in the coming days, coming weeks. Follow us on Twitter at Annenberg Media and Facebook at USC Annenberg Media. JP, it's been an absolute pleasure covering these results with you tonight.
Yeah, and as the night dwindles down, we want to wrap up this coverage, and we want to thank some of of our, some of the people who put the show together, our producers, the directors, and live reporters out in the field, our faculty advisors, and even the student volunteers that come into the media center ready and prepared to put this all together.
Yes, so many people were excited to walk into our newsroom today and get started, and everyone did a fantastic job. We couldn't do the show without them. Very thankful.
Yeah, and so all of our coverage will be on our website at uscannonburgmedia.com. I'm JP DeBoo.
I'm Gabby Gonta.
And good night.